Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with a surprise Saturday stream with everyone's favorite co-host, Adam Friended.
Hey, how you doing? And we have a very special guest here, Cenk of the Young Turks. He is the host and also the recent author of the book Justice is Coming: How Progressives Are Going to Take Over the Country and America is Going to Love It. That's no small claim there, Cenk. So we'll probably investigate that claim a bit. I
Yep.
just want to say when we start, look, I don't know if we're going to read a bunch of super chats. If there's any interesting questions, we might read them at the end. But we've got a bunch of broad topics that we want to get to and a bunch of questions. So just to let you know, we love you guys supporting the show. We will get to your super chats eventually, but we might not be reading them here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sitch and we'll begin the discussion.
Yeah, you had a very interesting conversation with Hassan the other day, and you made a really great point that I haven't really heard that many people bring up, which is that, you guys, you and Anna and like a lot of people, the Young Turks have been getting attacked recently because even though you agree with like 95% of the left on certain trans issues, there's some minor area of disagreement. And it seems like there's a lot of political pundits on the left on the internet that will attack you very viciously over these small disagreements and then cover it for hundreds of hours. And yet, many people's response to you is basically to tell you that you guys have to just shut up and take the attack, and that somehow you guys are responsible for going on and on and on about these small differences when you guys aren't the ones going on and on about it. It's the people attacking you. And why do you think it is that so many people tell you that you guys are the ones that have to be quiet, and why do you think so many people are attacking you over these small differences?
Yeah. So that has a bit of a long answer, but I think every part of the answer is interesting. So the way that the internet developed, and we have to go all the way back to the beginning of the internet to get to that answer. In the beginning, it was actually a beautiful place. I'm serious. Like, so Young Turks is the longest running show in internet history, and we're the first partner ever for YouTube, etc. And in the beginning, it was nothing but greatness, and people would be incredibly supportive. They just come in and give us equipment, like $5,000 equipment, so we can get the show on the air. It's just an amazing, amazing place. And then people began to realize, oh wait, I could say anything I want, and I'm anonymous. Oh, this is so fun. I'm going to say really mean, terrible things. And like, it's really hard to build yourself up in a constructive way, but it's really easy to get attention in a destructive way. So then the trolls began, right? And so we saw the very first trolls, alt-right guys, etc. And so what they realized was, oh, Young Turks is the largest because we started first, and we were an incredible alternative to mainstream media where everybody was like, oh, the Iraq war is great, and that's how old we are, right? And corporate rule is the best thing on earth. And then when we started saying things that were true, like politicians are corrupt, etc., people started flocking to us. So since we had the big audience, especially the algorithm back then was even worse, the minute you attacked us, you'd get explosive growth, because then you would get into what I call our algorithm loop, where your videos are served next to our videos. And so now I'll fast forward through the rest of the time. It led to like attacks from like kangaroos and cods and Sam Harris and on, all the way from the alt-right to conservatives to the establishment and now to the left, right? And that's why on Haas's show I referred to like a nest of scorpions, because it's almost not their fault. The incentive structure of the way the algorithms are based makes it nearly irresistible to attack the largest show, because then you're going to get into their loop and you're going to get attention. You're going to get attention in the old school way. Oh, I'm talking about them on Twitter, etc. I'm more pure than them. I'm better than them, etc. And they're the worst and I'm the best. That's a normal old school contrast. But plus you get the algorithmic boost, which is so important. So I'm like, I feel like I'm not sure I'm doing good by saying this, because then everybody out there, like all the streamers, are like, oh, wait, I can get famous by attacking them more, right? So that's why now we're at a point, like back in the day when all the alt-right and we were fighting, no, we disagree 200%. And we were at each other's throats for good reason. When I'm having the debate with Sam Harris now, I don't know, however many years ago, right? that was him like vilifying Muslims and me defending Muslims not for the religion but for the ethnicity, the national the background, etc. Those are real debates. But now people have run out of real debates. So they're like, oh, we found a microscopic difference in our opinion on trans issues. That's it. We're better than you. You're Nazis. Everybody come watch us. Let's farm their audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, I mean, all of this started with Anna putting out to what is to all normies, 98% of Americans, was the most benign tweet in Twitter history, right? I would like to be called a woman. Like, you tell that to a normie, and they'd be like, I don't understand the point. Like, it's so obvious, right?
Right.
And that was enough to launch 1,000 streams for thousands of hours about how Anna had made a big deal out of it. He did one tweet. You guys did thousands of hours on that tweet. Who made the big deal? Who made the big deal? And then, of course, I was a transgressor because even though I agree with almost all of it, I agree with 99% of trans rights, but I don't agree that the sports leagues that are at the professional level should be forced to accept trans women. I think that's their decision. I mean, that is like, you almost need a microscope to find that disagreement, right? And no, okay, we got clout issues. Yes, let's attack. And so that's made to be we're pure and you're Nazis. So that's internet 101 these days.
Why do you think the
But can
idea
I just say,
though?
sorry, Sitch, I know
Oh
I
yeah,
talked for a while there, but let
sure.
me just give one more thing about that. But the problem is, to the average person on Twitter, the average person watching on YouTube, Twitch, wherever, they don't know that. They don't, like, we know the industry and we know what happens behind the scenes and we know what's motivating them financially or otherwise. And maybe some of them really are like, oh my God, if you don't agree with me 100%, then I hate you forever. Okay, God bless. I mean, if that's your real opinion, there's nothing I could do to help you, right? You're going to hate everyone in your life. But the audience doesn't know that. So the audience actually thinks, like, some portion of them for a little while are like, oh, I guess Anna and Cenk hate trans people. Like, what? Right? We've been defending those folks for like 21 years on the air. We were the only ones for decades defending them. And we agree with 95 to 99% of the rights. But the audience comes away thinking, oh, there's an issue. There's an issue with the Young Turks. Exactly what mainstream media did to me when I was running for office. Exactly what the alt-right did to me when I launched Justice Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations. You seem like you're in lovely company. I don't mean you guys. I mean the guys attacking us.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you think so? It's interesting because, like, I understand exactly about, you attack people, you get clout and all that stuff. Why do you think that there are other streamers and people in the political punditry space who should know all this, and yet they keep putting the responsibility on you guys to just basically keep your head down and not voice any disagreements on
Yeah.
anything? Like, it's kind of like this idea of, like, you can't attack the left or criticize the left whatsoever.
Yeah. So the thing that amuses me most is when people tell me what I can't say.
Right.
Good luck, brothers and sisters. Good luck. It's been 21 years and no one's been able to get me to shut up yet. So first of all, we do a talk show. It's kind of in the title. So this idea of, like, now, if you disagree with the left even at all, you should shut up on your talk show. I mean, how do you not realize that's the most absurd thing to say? Second of all, how do you not realize that saying, if you disagree with the most extreme people in your party or in your wing of the political spectrum, that the right thing to do is to give in to the extremists and tell all the normies that might vote for you, even though progressive policies are enormously popular, no, we're going to pick the most unpopular part of the progressive policies that the right wing picked for us. And we're going to fight only on those grounds. And not only that, our largest voices should shut up and not even be involved in the debate. Yeah, why would I agree to that? Why would I agree to cede ground to the most extreme elements in our in our wing and then lose every election? It's such an absurd debate. It's
Right.
like, and they don't realize how absurd they're being.
Yeah, and, like, I find that whenever there's this attitude that, if on the left or the right, if you can't attack the people you disagree with on your side, that just allows the extremists essentially to take over the party. I mean, we have seen that, I think, to some extent a lot with, a lot of the Trump wing of things. But I know when you're talking to Hassan, you said that there were some political commentators you wanted to tell to shut the hell up. Are there any? Are there any you want to
I
tell to
think you
shut the
said
hell
shut
up?
the fuck up. I think it
Oh,
was
okay.
like a
Shut
little
the
more.
fuck up.
Yeah.
It
Is
was
there
a
any you
little more
want to tell?
strong than that.
Is there
Yeah.
any you want to tell to shut the fuck up now on this show?
No. So let me
No.
explain. Yeah. There's two things here. First, on this whole idea of shutting up, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm amused that like this tiny little streamer that just got in the game like 3 days ago is like, I am ordering the largest progressive network to stand down and they must listen to my orders and never speak again. Okay. On this issue. Imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and I did that. And I went around bigfooting like streamers that haven't been around 21 years. It's not their fault. Right.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you cannot speak against us. Everybody would say, what do you, have you lost your mind? What do you mean you can't say anything if you disagree with us? That would be authoritarian, mental, anti-progressive. It would be bizarre, but they feel perfectly empowered to say it. No, I have 7.5 followers and we demand you stop talking. Okay,
Mhm.
agree to disagree. So, but that also applies in reverse to your question. Like I say, if they're even telling me to shut the fuck up, I'm gonna tell you to shut the fuck up. But do I really mean it? No, you say anything you want. I don't care. Have at it, Hoss. Look, like I'm considering running for president. You guys will probably ask me about that later.
Mhm.
But anyways, on that issue, like imagine again. I mean, this is all so insane. Like I'm tiny compared to Biden. If I get in the race, I'm like, Biden is not allowed to criticize me.
Right.
Okay, that's like your opinion, man. Okay. And in the presidential race, I will get like savagely attacked. That's the game. So I get it. I get it, brothers and sisters. You're doing the same thing Jennifer Medina at the New York Times did to me, right? So she lied about me in 100 different ways. And the media, all the way through mainstream media, feels perfectly empowered to lie about everyone. So all those streamers who said we were anti-trans, I mean, that's just a preposterous lie. That's an outrageous lie. But
Mhm.
I get it, man. Congratulations. You're like the New York Times. You lie for a living. Got it. But I'm not actually telling them that they have to be quiet. Say whatever the hell you want. I'll meet you in the marketplace of ideas. And as usual, I'll win.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you said in your book that you were excited to see that there's all this new polling that shows that the younger generation is becoming more progressive. But I think it's like a truism that every positive thing has a drawback. And not only are younger people becoming more progressive, but it seems like they're also becoming more leftist, more socialist. And it seems like kind of in what we were just talking about, it didn't seem to me that it was the progressives that were really attacking you, or the liberal progressives, I should say, that were attacking you and Anna. I don't remember David Pakman or Cal Kalinske or any other of them attacking you. It was really like this kind of internet leftist socialist people kind of going after you. And I think the reason for this is not just the clout, which is definitely part of it, but is because they view you and Anna and the Young Turks as essentially gatekeepers, preventing your audience from going further to the left. And that's kind of why they want to take you down.
Okay. I mean, first of all right, then they're gatekeepers that are preventing people from going to sensical solutions. There. Okay. I got you. It bounced right off of me and the rubber went onto you or the glue did or whatever the hell that saying is.
Yeah.
Okay. So congratulations. These are all just BS excuses to attack us.
Hmm.
And if you say, oh, they're like, oh, it's you guys have a bigger responsibility because you're the most popular. Why do you think that went through? Why do you think we became the most popular? Maybe because we speak for the most amount of people. We get 5 billion views a year. Now, do you think that was an accident that people, oh, God damn it, I clicked on again. Jesus, that's 4.9 billion times that I accidentally clicked on this thing. No, people like what we're saying. And the reason we got huge in the first place is because we provide a voice that almost no one else does. And so we're not with the corporatist mainstream media. We're not with the lunatic right wing. And we don't believe in extremism. We believe in things that are popular. And the progressive position on almost every issue is 2/3 popularity in the country. So why would I go to like weirdo extremes on the right, the left, or anywhere else, or in the corporatist world, when I could just stay with my own positions that I'm super lucky happen to be enormously popular?
Hmm.
Okay, so Okay, you can call it anything you like, gatekeeper. And but gatekeeper, one last thing about that, because this is really important. I get criticism on both sides of this. So I need the internet to make up its mind. On the one hand, they say, oh, Cenk has hired all these terrible people, Jimmy Dore and Dave Rubin, and they'll throw Michael Tracy in there. And again, he used to have Sean King, and Glenn Greenwald used to come on his air. And boo, you hired terrible people. You're the worst. Okay.
This is a crazy list, Cenk. I mean,
yeah, Glenn was never hired, to be fair. Okay. But Sean was a contributor. Okay. So hold on. We'll get to that. So on the one hand, you're guilty of hiring too many people and being too open-minded, okay? On the other hand, you're a gatekeeper. You're keeping the gates closed. Wait, which one is it? That doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, why did I hire all those folks, including, by the way, like people who've done amazing afterwards, Hassan and others, and people that are doing amazing inside, Anna and Rashad Ritchie, etc., Nina Turner, all these wonderful people, right? The reason is mainstream media has this much bandwidth. You have to be between corporate position X and corporate position Y. If you go slightly outside of those positions to the left or the right, you're a goner. And that's what I explained in chapter 5 of Justice is Coming. They set up a matrix. You have to follow exactly corporate status quo. I know, I lived it. I was an anchor on MSNBC. I can tell you the stories. There's no question about it. It's also in the book. Okay. So what I did was I opened up the bandwidth. And when I opened up the bandwidth, I knew that sometimes folks are going to get in and they're not going to, and they're going to go awry. So Rubin and Dore went awry. Well, that's the balancing act. If you never open up the bandwidth, you are never going to allow enough people in. Do you know how many hosts the Young Turks have hired over the years? It's probably in the hundreds by now. On Rebel headquarters, we have contributors. And so those contributors are making videos. There's dozens of them. And then in the past, I mean, like by now, like a quarter of mainstream media is ex-TYT hosts. So you see Charles Coleman on MSNBC. He was one of ours. You see Karamo Brown on Queer Eye for the Straight Guy on Netflix. He was a TYT host. I can go on and on. And so, yeah, there were some guys that went through that gate that maybe I'm not happy with today. But I'm really proud that we opened up that gate. But if the idea is that we're bottling up too many voices, that's a preposterous criticism.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to ask something about that list, Adam? Or?
Well, no, I just look, I think the question is really more about like gatekeeping towards socialism. So it's not really gatekeeping voices out of the marketplace. It's that there are people, Hassan, which you mentioned, who would be very happy if there was a socialist revolution and we completely reorganized the government. I'm sure you've seen his talks with Ethan on their podcast. So they're saying basically, you're standing in the way of some socialist revolution.
Good. I don't want a socialist revolution.
Okay, well that's nice. Good to hear. Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like they're like, you're standing in our way because you have your own opinions. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. And why don't you bow down to our opinions? No. Why don't you bow down to my opinion? I mean, this is, guys, exact debate I had with mainstream Democrats. Mainstream Democrats are like, well, Bernie should stand down because he doesn't agree with Hillary Clinton. Well, why doesn't Hillary Clinton stand down? Why does Bernie have to stand down? Same thing as Bernie against Biden. Now, extreme left or whatever is like pulling the same thing as Hillary Clinton. Since we disagree, you have to stand up. Well, all right, brothers and sisters. By the way, I don't do the same hypocrisy. That's why I want to make sure that, like, shut the fuck up is just rhetorical, right? It's just a fun little thing.
Well, look, I was in favor of the people you told to shut the fuck up on Hassan's stream, shutting the fuck up. So, we've got a point of agreement there, Jake.
Well, I hear you, but in reality, I'm perfectly happy to have them make their points, right? And so, no, I'm not stopping anyone. If they're saying, well, you're stopping your audience from convincing them of something you don't agree with. Well, yeah, that's how talk shows work.
There's a different kind of atmosphere that goes on. Really, they're participating in some kind of reputation destruction that involves fiction about you as a person, about you as a business. So yeah, I'm happy to hear them make their points if there's actually some sort of good faith dialogue going on. But if they're just lying about your positions, I don't see how that's helpful for the discourse. So, like, yeah, I don't mind telling those people to STFU.
Yeah, and look, so when they lie, I say the truth, and we go back and forth, and then eventually they disappear, and we stay. That's been the history
Yeah.
for over 20 years. So, because you know why? You know why we lasted so long? Because it's hard to build trust, man. Like when you lie to your audience, they leave you, and we don't do
Yes.
that. We don't do that. That's why we have one time LA Times writer called, and we got into a conversation, and he said, your competition is a graveyard, right?
Right.
And whether it's like, but the streamers are the minor part of it, like digital media companies, they all went under. Why? Because they weren't authentic. So when you're authentic and you're honest, you get attacked. If you're inauthentic, you don't want to offend anyone, right? And you're like,
Mhm.
then you parse your words and you start doing bullshit, and then people get tired of it and leave. So people have been watching us, they come back and watch us, they keep on watching us because they know it's our true opinion. So you want to lie as a strategy about us, brother? I've been there before. Okay, so good luck to you, but it's not going to work. It never works. And by the way, I want to be super clear. I'm not putting Haas in any of these categories, and I don't love the whole owning and who won the debate, etc. Hassan and I had a really good discussion. And so I want to be able to foster discussions like this one, like the one I had with him, like the one I had with Destiny, without people going, "Oh, he got owned," and that, oh, because then everybody gets their competitive juices up and their dander up, to use a
Mhm.
super old school term, and then nobody wants to talk because they don't. Oh, somebody's going to get owned. No, let's all have a conversation. That was a perfectly good conversation. Nobody owned anybody.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, especially also when you get, when you talk about this owning, everyone gets very defensive. So in the conversation, you can't really acknowledge the other person's point because you're just too interested in trying to beat them optically.
Yeah.
Um, but do you think this, because it's weird, for me, I mean, I'm only in my 30s, but it's kind of weird to see this growing interest in socialism among some people on the internet kind of blossom. Do you think that's going to continue? Do you think it's going to shrink? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing?
Okay, so now let's clarify what socialism means and what I mean by I'm not in favor of the socialist revolution. Okay, so in the book, one of the things that I explain, and by the way, if you want to get the book, tyt.com/justice. So what I explain is nobody ever clarifies what socialism is. And the reality is there's a giant range from like arguably Venezuela, but I wouldn't say Cuba or North Korea because I think those are flat out communist and flat out dictatorships. And Venezuela is super close. But let's give the right wing Venezuela. And so it ranges from Venezuela to Finland. Well, which one are we talking about? Because if we're talking about Taiwan, it's a lovely place. If we're talking about Sweden, it's a beautiful place, right? If we're talking about Venezuela, then I think it went way too far and it's radical and it's problematic. Okay. And if you're defending Venezuela and you think it's a paradise on earth, okay, go talk to a Venezuelan. I think you're deluding yourself. I think you're in a bubble,
Mhm.
etc. But socialism isn't communism, and socialism is the least well-defined term I've ever seen. But I call myself a democratic capitalist as opposed to a democratic socialist, and I know that that's going to piss off some of the young. But I believe capitalism has the right incentives and disincentives. The problem isn't capitalism. The problem is corporatism. And right now, we don't live under a free market. Corporations have captured our government. Bribes have been legalized. Corporations have cut off all competition, killed off the free markets. And what is the democratic part of democratic capitalism? Well, capitalism is supposed to be, it needs to be checked by democracy. And Adam Smith wrote about this. If you're an actual capitalist, read Wealth of Nations and you'll know we have to protect against corporatism and against oligopolies and monopolies. He said it all the way back in 1776. And that is the job of the government to do that. Regulations are necessary in order to protect free markets. If you don't have regulations and laws, you won't have free markets. You'll have
Mhm.
monopolies, and that's what I fight against. So I want to make sure we bring democracy back and protect the citizens. But I do think the right structure is free markets as opposed to centralized control. So if we're
Right.
being specific about centralized government control, I don't believe that works.
Yeah, I think so the Republicans for a lot of time that I was growing up, would cry wolf about socialism in terms of everything. You know, they said Obamacare was socialism, even though it was obviously a right-wing plan originally. You know, any sort of welfare program would be classified as socialism. And I think that crying of wolf has actually hurt them significantly now, because now that there actually is something that kind of approximates socialism is here, a lot of people kind of turn off to, or like don't, you know, heed the cry. And when I'm talking about socialism, I'm just using the way that the people that call themselves socialists define it, which is usually they're in favor of abolishing capital or private ownership and having everything be under some sort of co-op model, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, but
Well,
do you think that that's like that the interest in that's going to increase or decrease in time? And do you think it's going to end up being a positive or negative for the country?
well, so that's a really interesting, nuanced question because I think it's overall positive, even though I don't agree with it,
Hmm.
because I think it's going to get us to a better balance. So, and guys, the devil's in the details here, but the angels are also in the details. So, the difference between my democratic capitalism and Bernie's democratic socialism is really minor. It's more like theoretical and ideological than it is in practice because I also believe in Medicare for all, free college for students, you know, paid family leave, all these things that are, by the way, so do most Americans. I mean, the great majority of Americans agree with both the policies of Bernie's democratic socialism and my democratic capitalism. There are things that I disagree with democratic socialists around on the edges, right? But when you
Hmm.
go to socialism, what I would really call communism, when you're talking about eradicating private property and having the government dole out property, I'm at a hell to the no. No way. It's never worked. It's never going to work. But again, nuance. If you want to do a co-op, great, do a co-op. There's nothing wrong with doing a co-op. And if you can make the co-op system and infrastructure work, then more power to you. I love you for doing that. And there are some successful co-ops in the world. But then I would also ask the co-op people, as much as I'm rooting for you, you always point to the same couple of co-ops. So I know you'll say like the system won't allow it, et cetera, but apparently it allowed those couple of successful co-ops. So why aren't there more co-ops? And my answer is, unfortunately, even though it sounds wonderful, and sometimes it is wonderful, and I want to encourage you guys to try, right? But a lot of times it devolves because there's so much infighting. Like it starts out as a beautiful concept, but humans being humans, they wind up fighting too much. And oftentimes you do need a leader. And I know sometimes the left doesn't love to hear that unless it's them, right? but you do need, let's put it this way, an organizer to organize good folks to go in the right direction.
Hmm.
So, just keep going. Such,
Oh, okay.
we'll go
Um,
back to that towards the end.
okay. Um, so do you think that the Democrats, who do you think is doing a better job winning over the Senate right now, the Democrats or the Republicans?
Uh, it's a tie because neither one of them wants to do anything and they're not doing anything. So they're ecstatic. So all those corporate Democrats and Republicans, which is about 95% of the Senate, are secretly high-fiving with their donors every single day. They couldn't be happier. Nothing's getting done. The donors don't want anything getting done. They totally rule this country with an iron fist, and they're thrilled that there's gridlock. And so mainstream media is nothing but theater. They don't have any ideological differences. You find me an actual difference between Chris Coons and any Republican, I dare you. And so they're both guilty. They play, as again, I explained in Justice is Coming, they play good cop, bad cop. And so I can give you 1,000 examples, but that's my overall point.
Well, so you don't think there's a difference between the Democrats and Republican politicians, or you don't think there's a difference between like MSNBC and Fox News? Because I mean, it seems like there's a pretty significant ideological difference
No, there
to
isn't.
me.
So
There
yes,
isn't.
there is, and no, there isn't.
Hmm.
So uh so my thesis, and I got this originally from Anna, and I think she did a great job of pointing this out on the Young Turks and show me the research behind the scenes on it, et cetera. And I think it's absolutely right. So the both in mainstream media and in mainstream politics, they use corporate rule uses good cop, bad cop on us. So the Democrats are the good cops, Republicans are the bad cops, but the Republicans are super strong, and the donors fund super strong, super radical right wingers to push the over to window to the right. But here's the genius of it that I explained in chapter 4. They fund really weak Democrats to go, there was nothing we could do. There was nothing we could do. We had to give them everything. We gave them another several $1 trillion in tax cuts because there was nothing we did. Did I do well? Did I nailed it, right? And then MSNBC comes along and goes, yes, what American heroes. There was nothing they could do. There was nothing they could do, right? And they all sing it in unison. They're going to make a musical out of it one day. Now, when you turn to MSNBC and Fox News, just like the politicians, they have 1,000 disagreements over what? Always culture wars. Always. How should the M&M lady dress? What gender is Mr. Potato Head? Dr. Seuss books? Anything to distract you. They'll almost take a live squirrel on air and just throw it at the screen, right? And so, but when it comes to economic issues, I dare you to find a difference between MSNBC and Fox News. They always say, oh, relieving student debt is terrible. Higher wages for the American people. It's going to lead to inflation. It's terrible, 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 right? MSNBC says it more than Fox News, but they all agree, and so does CNN. I'm sure it's a wild coincidence. It's not a conspiracy. It's the invisible hand of the market. I explain it in chapter 4.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, well, just going on what you were saying for a moment, even if it was true that there was agreement on economic policies, do you think that these cultural differences are real? Or are you suggesting that it's just all like wrestling?
So a little bit of both. So here's where those circles intersect. In Washington and New York, there is a cultural elite, and they have a certain apportionment system within them. And so they have gotten this thing of like, it's almost like old Istanbul in the 1850s, where there was a really healthy, beautiful Jewish quadrant and an Armenian quadrant and a Greek quadrant and a Turkish quadrant. But it wasn't a formal quota system. In Washington and New York, it's a little bit more formal quota system, where Black women have to get this, Black men have to get that, brown women, brown men, gay women, straight men, like for the Democratic Party, that's like super important. But is it really about serving Black and brown people that are voters and citizens? Is it really about protecting the LGBTQ community in the real world? No, it's about the super rich, super powerful apportioning power among themselves. Okay. So do they care about it? Yeah, they care about it. They're like, I want that position of power, not that other person. That is why these cultural issues are so important. So I could make more money and be more famous. Yeah, I said it. Okay. So, but in terms of like, when you get down to the voters, is there disagreement there? Oh yeah, there's definitely disagreement there. So there's a quadrant of the right wing that says, I hate anything that's different. I don't like that my town looks more brown. I don't like these LGBTQ folks running around. Before we had them nicely stuffed into a closet. Now they're out and proud as actual human beings, like living their best lives. Ew, I don't want that, right? So are there voters like that? Come on, don't be ridiculous. Of course there are voters like that, right? And then are there people on the left who say that I'm a Nazi because I think that the sports leagues should make their own decisions about admitting trans women? So yeah, there's massive disagreement among the voters too. But 2/3 of the country agree on almost every issue. It's the 1/3, the 1/6 on each side that are getting us to battle. And the corporate interests love that battle. So they encourage that and they egg that on, and they have their own version of it. So look, guys, one of the most important factors here is don't get conspiratorial like the right wing. There are it's a very rare that you have a secret memo. In the case of Phil Donahue being fired at MSNBC for being opposed to the Iraq War, there actually was a secret memo. And there was, in terms of corporate takeover of our government, there was the most legendary secret memo of all time, but it's not secret. It's called the Powell memo. That's the heart of chapter 4. It explains how the Chamber of Commerce totally took over our government, right? But most of the time, it's not a memo. It's just groupthink. It's the invisible hand of the market. It's the market moving in a certain direction. It's people who hire people who think like them, who then hire others who think like them. And that's why you have total corporatist groupthink on television and mainstream media.
Cenk, you're shifting back and forth between economic issues and like identity politics type issues. I understand that you're basically saying the elites are using identity politics to to get policy that serves their own economic interests. But you yourself, right here on the show, are shifting back and forth. And I wonder if, like, we are, or different content creators are kind of falling into the same trap. We're using identity politics because identity politics really motivates people. They feel like, look, this policy prescription on trans people is really, hurt my identity as a trans person. So therefore I'm very motivated. And, they're completely shifted away from economic issues, which could be in everybody's interest.
So I'm really glad you're making that distinction. So you're forced to talk about both social and economic issues. I think the social issues are often used to divide us, as I just explained, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to do unilateral surrender to the right wing. So if the right wing, because the left wing didn't propose any bills at the state level on those issues, the right wing did. Let's be honest about who the aggressors are, right? So the right wing comes in and says, I'm introducing a bill to ban trans people from bathrooms or the military, or then later high school sports, etc. And they go, now shut up about it. No, I'm not going to shut up about it. I'm going to fight back against you. But I have a radical idea. I don't know why it's so radical. It's the most common sense thing in the world. Why can't we do both? Why can't we fight back on the social issues, but then agree on the economic issues? So, if you're a bigot and racist, in my opinion, right, and I don't use your words lightly. I use it when it's provable. But okay, you're all those terrible things, and then you say, yeah, I want paid family leave because I want
can I answer that really quick?
I go, yes, I'll take yes for an answer.
Cenk, can I answer that really quick? Because look, the problem is, if you latch on to these identity politics issues and there's a certain policy prescription that really damages me morally, like, it's impossible for me to vote with that person regardless what the issue is. So that kind of makes voting on the economic issue. Look, I'm not going to vote, and I've said this on the show before. Like, would you, Cenk, take a $15 minimum wage, federal minimum wage, if it came with some policy that was openly racist, basically said blacks had to ride in the back of the bus again? Like, you would never take that policy prescription.
But Adam, it doesn't work that way. So the way that it works in the practical world, and you tell me where you disagree, is that it's not like, hey, I'm going to vote for Trump and I'm going to believe Trump that he was in favor of $15 minimum wage. First of all, he's not. He doesn't even think that a minimum wage should exist. But in that hypothetical, okay, but I'm going to have to vote for the racist to get the $15 minimum wage. So I'm not going to do it, okay? But in the real world, the way that it actually works is somebody proposes $15 minimum wage, and then for whatever reason, again, this is a hypothetical, Matt Gaetz agrees with it. I'm going to take his yes vote. Why wouldn't I take his yes vote? It's crazy not to take his yes vote. In fact, there is a real world example right now. Both Matt Gaetz, Ro Khanna, and AOC agree on anti-corruption bills inside Congress. Hell yeah. Yeah, okay, I despise Matt Gaetz on other things. Why am I going to shun him on where he agrees with me? No, I'm going to take yes for an answer.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but it's difficult once you've painted Matt Gaetz as a racist, someone who's in favor of a policy that would put blacks at the back of the bus. It's impossible to justify that vote with Matt Gaetz on anything. I feel like that's part of the problem with our political polarization.
But Adam, that's the trap. And that's what I'm trying to get people to not fall into that trap.
Right. Look, even you, the way that you're phrasing these bills as anti-trans bills, I would look at some of those bills, I would definitely call anti-trans. But when people come out and say there's thousands of anti-trans bills, some of them are just as innocuous as if your child expresses some sort of gender identity disorder at school, they have to notify the parents. Gender identity disorder is classified as a mental illness in the
DSM.
In the DSM-5, yeah. So that's much more innocuous, yet it's being framed as like a literal genocide of trans people. So as soon as you frame it that way,
Adam, that doesn't sound innocuous. If someone told me that something I believe is a mental disorder about me, I would not take that as innocuous. I would take that as
okay. Well, look, you're making my
deeply offensive.
Look, you're making my point, because it is classified as a mental disorder in the DSM-5. We can have an argument about whether or not it should be classified as a mental disorder. I'm just saying at this particular time it is. Like, if that was affecting a child at school, I mean, we need to have a conversation as a society if the parents should be notified in that situation.
So no, there's nothing wrong with the conversation. So, and I think that there are tough issues around the edges. So, for example, do I think that the surgery should be allowed, gender affirming surgery, before 18 years old? No.
Okay,
No
we agree
way.
on that.
Yeah. So no, you got to get to 18 and they got to make their own decision as an adult. I'm not going to let a 13-year-old make life-changing decisions. Have you ever met a 13-year-old? They're not prepared to make life-changing decisions. So, so you want to have a conversation about, hey, is it 13? Is it 15? Is it 18? And so surgery shouldn't be allowed. I think the overwhelming majority of people, including trans folks, agree to that. But how about hormone therapy? Okay, I think that's a legitimate conversation, and some in the trans community, activist community, and I don't think the trans activists necessarily represent the trans community at large at all. Okay, but in the activist community, they say no, that's not a conversation. You should shut the fuck up, and you have to listen to what we say, and we're right, and you're wrong, and by the way, then you come around and you say it's a mental disorder. It's in the DSM-5 and the
Look, I'm not saying that. I want it to be clear here. Look, that's not me. That's like the DSM is saying that.
I don't know I don't care what the DSM is saying. Like, so can you find me doctors who call it a mental disorder? I'm sure you can. Can you find me doctors who say, fuck no, it's not a mental disorder? No, they're going through a perfectly normal thing. It's just because you don't have that in your mind. You can't imagine that someone else might think that way. But at the same time, between the ages of 12 and 18, people are very susceptible to social pressure. So it is a very tough question. And both sides treat it as if it's not a tough question and that it's perfectly easy and that their answer is definitely the correct answer. And I'm saying, let's have a conversation. But I'm also saying, you want to pass a bill saying you're going to outlaw extreme things like surgery pre-18? No problem. Okay.
Oh, so you're in favor of that. But that would be pitched as an anti-trans bill.
That's right. And I would say they're wrong. That's not an anti-trans bill. And so they would say, and we would argue, and that's okay. There's no problem with that. Right. But then once you slip beyond that, and then you start telling parents, no, you don't know what's right for your kids. Your doctor doesn't know what's right. The kid doesn't know what's right. The government knows what's right. Well, that's where I get uncomfortable. And I go, no, I leave it to the parents for hormone therapy or whatever else they think is right for their kids.
Well, one more thing, and I'll let Sitch take it back over. I feel like you have to admit, like maybe you don't want to admit it, but like if there are, and I've heard this a number of times, there's hundreds. I mean, I think you just said the number, like there's hundreds of anti-trans bills. Okay. If we look at each of those bills individually, like one of them, you're saying, I wouldn't even define this as an anti-trans bill. It just says you can't get hormone treatment or surgery until you're 18, right?
No. There's a distinction between hormone treatment and surgery.
Okay, so you're in favor of hormone treatment. Okay.
No, I'm in favor of letting the parents decide.
Okay. So if there's a bill that says they can't have surgery until they're 18, you would not define that as a anti-trans bill.
No.
So if we look at all of the bills, and it turns out really only 5 of them we would define as anti-trans, and the other 100 that we're lumping in are just informing the parents of a situation at school. Those aren't really, we're not classifying those as anti-trans, or just the surgery. You got to admit that will have a dramatic effect on our politics if you're spreading information that Republicans, basically hate trans people, and there's hundreds of anti-trans bills.
But Adam, look, so a couple of things. First of all, I assume you're going to acknowledge that there are some parents that are fundamentalists, and that if you tell them their kids are trans,
of course,
it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. Okay. So that's why I think it's super tough. On the one hand, if I'm a parent, I want to be informed. I get it. Oh, my son, daughter, et cetera, is considering transitioning, et cetera. I don't want that to be a secret to me. And I want that to be shared with me. And I want to talk to my kids. But I'm an understanding parent. we're not usually the problem. The reason why sometimes people don't get informed is because they're worried that the parents are going to take it out on the kids. So I don't have an easy answer to that. I don't think the easy answer is never tell the parents or always tell the parents. I think it's situational. What if you knew that the parent believed in, physical discipline to try to beat the trans out of the kid? Then I wouldn't want to tell the parent. I would hope that most people wouldn't want to tell that kind of parent. That's why it gets super difficult. But guys, do you think the Republicans are like, golly gee, I really care about parents, and I just happened to pick the anti-trans ones to target? I mean, I could have fought for parents on 1,000 other things, but I don't. But like, I just, golly gee, I happen to find the LGBTQ community and attack them. Oh, does that help me electorally?
Cenk, the claim. Look, I just want to be clear on this claim. Are you saying Republicans don't care about their children?
No, but you're going
okay. Well, look, that's the kind of implicit claim here. If you're saying that
Republicans, not implicit at all.
Well, you're saying Republicans are not fighting for the parents. You're saying Republicans are only fighting because they have some constituency that hates trans people.
Yeah, so let's distinguish between Republican politicians and media figures and Republican voters. So Republican voters, they're not innocent either, right? And they're not a monolith. They're a spectrum.
Thank you. Okay? They're not a monolith.
Exactly. Okay, so within that spectrum, is there a part of the base, like 37% of Republicans say that Trump can do anything? They don't give a goddamn what he does, and they're going to back him. So that 37% has switched off their mind. The only thing that switches it back on is hate. They're like, who do we hate? Who do we hate? Who do we hate? Okay. Do they control primaries? Let's be honest. I mean, if they don't control the primaries, they have a massive say in Republican primaries. That's why we're getting Republican politicians that are so extreme compared to even the entire Republican base, let alone the country, right? But when you talk about the Republican politicians, are they genuinely looking out for the parents? 0% chance. Zero. No way. This is what
you don't think they have constituents.
Hold on, let me explain. I've lived through this. They first were attacking black people all the way back in the 60s, 70s, etc. And you got to do segregation, right? And they're like, oh, that's just a coincidence. Oh, hatred got me more Republican votes. Oh, it's the Southern strategy I've been doing for decades. Oh, golly gee, right? And then in 2004, they drove everybody to the to vote for George W. Bush by putting anti-gay ballot measures against gay marriage. They're like, oh, another coincidence. It was hate that it got our base to vote for us again. And now it's anti-trans. So every time it's anti-someone, hatred. If you don't think Republican politicians are doing that, you're just not paying attention to politics.
Well, look, I think we just fundamentally disagree on that. The fact that, I mean, I feel like every congressperson is somewhat bound to what their constituents wants. And I just, it's impossible for me to believe that the constituency of parents is not something that they're looking to appease. So, Sitch, I'll turn it back over to you. If you have something to say, Cenk.
Yeah. So let me just say one quick thing about that, Adam. If they actually cared about the constituent of parents, the very first priority wouldn't be some microscopic trans issue to pick a culture war fight over. They do paid. Well,
this isn't microscopic.
Hold on. They would do paid family leave. They would say, "Oh my God, moms are forced back into coal mines and assembly lines a day after they give birth for 85% of American workers. That's insane. No, we're going to help families. We're going to help parents. We're going to give them 12 weeks off, like the bare minimum of a civilized society. 84% of Americans agree with it. 74% of Republican voters agree with it. We're going to help moms. We're going to help dads. Instead, they go, no, we don't want that. The whole country wants it, but our corporate donors don't want it. So hate trans people instead. Come on, super obvious.
Which one is an immediate threat? You're worried about your kid being indoctrinated by some, social contagion by some school teacher, or you're worried about the next kid that you're going to have getting paid family leave. Which is the immediate threat in a parent's?
Okay, so first of all, there's a giant wrong premise in what you just said.
Well, no, look,
Some teacher is going to indoctrinate. Which teacher is going, be trans, be gay? They're not doing that.
Let's
like paying out
on.
of pocket to get them notebooks and pencils. They're not weirdly brainwashing the kids. And I have a really radical thing to say to right-wing parents. You ready? Why don't you do your goddamn job and parent your kids? I got kids in public schools. I don't just go, oh, are the teachers going to brainwash them? No, I parent them. I talk to them every day. I tell them what's right and what's wrong. I ask them what they're hearing from their friends, their teachers, from YouTube, etc. And I parent them. Republicans, you should look into parenting your kids and stop crying about, oh, I saw someone else saying something wrong to my kids. Do your goddamn job.
Cenk, look, I love the way that you emote. It's like amazing here. Look, I just want to get an answer. I want to get an answer to the question. Okay. Like, I understand that you do not believe.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to get into the answer.
Look, I don't.
Paid family leave is
no, that's not the question.
2 million. No, you asked, hey, what's more immediate, important to people's lives? When you have a baby, being able to take 12 weeks off rather than going right back to work is 2 million times more important than did some voodoo teacher brainwash my kids into an ideology where they might actually be themselves instead of the thing that I want them to be.
Okay,
right.
We'll take it.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you.
But at the same time, Adam, I'm not saying social contagion doesn't exist.
Right. There we go. Look, at least we've made some progress here. Like most people, you say social contagion, and they're just, what are you talking about?
No,
social
and the
contagion.
left says that is wrong because, guys, it exists totally outside of these trans issues. LGBT
of course,
issues.
It exists with suicide. There's a lot of literature on that.
I was going to make.
Yeah.
So, like, even in like northeastern Turkey, like 40 years ago, there was a contagion of women's suicides.
Yes.
And it took off like a rocket, right? So social contagion is real. The right wing does it. The left wing does it. Like the right wing does it with guns, in my opinion. Oh, you got to get guns. Oh, you got to be afraid. Guns. You're surrounded yourself, wrap yourself with guns. Oh, yeah. And they get so scared, and they do. And they got 300 million guns that they're shoving up their ass and like, oh, I'm safe now. And that's a social contagion of a sort, right?
Sure. Well, yeah. I was about to say, so, I mean, you acknowledge that there's social contagion. There could be a social contagion aspect for kids identifying as trans. Obviously, the numbers have increased dramatically since the past. But I want to say two things. First of all, I want to clarify, because I know someone's going to criticize you, Adam. You said gender identity disorder. It's gender dysphoria. So
no, I think they changed it in the DSM.
No, they changed it from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria.
Okay, well,
but
there you go.
So that's the first thing. But
I've been fact checked.
There you go. But the second thing, as you were saying, Cenk, about you don't want the government to be, and first of all, I don't want to get super bogged down in the trans weeds stuff, but you didn't want the government to be kind of involved necessarily between parents and doctors relating to hormones. But the issue that I have with that is, before they started to give kids puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, they used to find that after kids went through puberty, there'd be something like a 60 to 90% rate of desistance, which is, they would stop feeling like they had gender dysphoria, they stop feeling like they're trans. And there's been more research in a lot of the European countries where I think 4 or 5 European countries have even stopped doing the affirmative care model, have stopped giving kids before puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and things of that like. What do we, like, as a society, what do we do if we have this kind of conflicting medical research? And it looks like in America, for whatever reason, the medical community is not really addressing this and is essentially doing kind of experimental procedures on children.
No, I mean, that's your opinion that it's experimental procedures. I understand what you're saying. And I think that's a very tough issue because a lot of science is settled, a lot of science is unsettled. And this one is right in the middle. And so there are good scientists who say that you should not do hormone therapy pre-18, and there are good scientists who say you should. Okay. And so that's why I leave it to the parents, because when it's unsettled like that, or it's in the middle and people have good arguments on both sides, I feel it's not my job and it's not the government's job to decide. It's the parents' job. It's the individual's job to decide and to sort that out. And I know some portion of the left will say, how dare you? You only have to listen to the scientists who agree with us. And so the right wing will say, no, you only have to listen to the scientists who agree with us. And no deal, guys, no deal. So I'm going to listen to all the scientists, and I know in things like vaccines, it is perfectly settled. Also, gravity, perfectly settled. Okay, and some that are like junk science, like ivermectin, blah blah blah. Right? It works on worms, not on COVID. But there are things where the scientific community and the medical community is split, and so that's not the place for the government to interfere. That's for the individuals to make their own decisions.
So I want to go back. You said we were talking before this about MSNBC. So like I know because I mean I've listened to MSNBC and CNN and Washington Post and New York Times and all that liberal media, as they say. And I know I've seen commentators write articles and go on TV and advocate for increasing the minimum wage to $15, to actually being in favor of student debt relief, to raising the estate tax, to raising corporate tax. I mean, I feel like I've seen a lot of these, like a very clear economic ideological difference between New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC versus like someone like Fox News or Breitbart or something to that effect.
No,
No.
on Young Turks, we show anytime student debt relief is proposed, Stephanie Rule on MSNBC and many other anchors will be sent out there to go, this is that kind of a dangerous thing by Biden. It encourages all the wrong kind of behavior, blah, 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 right? And the Fox News guys will get on and say, like, same thing. Oh, well, how about the guys who already pay their student debt? A bunch of freeloaders, blah, 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 blah. Show me like enthusiastic CNN anchors or MSNBC anchors going, higher minimum wage. I'm not sure there's one. Relieve all student debt. I'm not sure there's one. Literally, I'm not. Maybe Van Jones. Maybe Chris Hayes secretly, even though he doesn't say it on air. Okay, but like when you don't say it on air, it doesn't really help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for each one. I know, like, if I just Google MSNBC raise minimum wage, I know there's an article from like 2021 of like Velshi was in favor of raising the minimum wage to $15. I feel like I just feel like if I Google any of these like terms, the articles come up in favor. I'm sure there's articles against it as well, but there are articles in favor of it. It doesn't seem correct to me to say that there's no difference between the economic policies of the left and the right in the mainstream media.
Yeah, I think that if there are any differences, when push comes to shove and it's actually they're going to vote on it, you will see. Look, that's why we do predictions on Young Turks, because we want you to see, do we have it figured out? It's easy to Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to critique afterwards, but we tell you ahead of time, they're going to vote with the money every time. And we're going to show you, hey, look, we told you that MSNBC anchors would be against student debt relief. And here they are. Here's one anchor, the second anchor, the third anchor, all against student debt relief. What a coincidence. MSNBC's lineup is literally half former Republicans. Joe Scarborough is a right-winger. Nicole Wallace was the mouthpiece for George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And these are the left-wingers in Washington? Come on. It's a joke. And by the way, though, I'm always fair. Good point about Ali Veshi. Good. I'm glad he wrote that article. I'm glad you found that. And even more important, Mehdi Hassan, best guy on cable easily. And he's on MSNBC, and they should get credit for
that. Okay. Well, so you in the book you spend a lot of time and also on the show you kind of criticize centrist Democrats who make this kind of argument about how we have to not do progressive things because if we do progressive things we'll lose votes. But can't leftists make the same critique of you when you say we can't do certain leftist things because it will turn off the center?
Yeah. Except there's a giant difference. I am right and they are wrong.
We hear that a lot.
So let me explain why. Seriously, It's not because my opinion is better than their opinion. No, factually speaking. So centrists go, so-called centrist Democrats in Washington go, we can't do paid family leave. That is very radical and unpopular. But wait, you're lying. 84% of the country wants it. It's literally the most centrist position in America right now. Like you cannot find more agreement on any other proposal than on paid family leave. That's why I keep harping on it. So why didn't the Democrats do it, even though it's intensely popular? Because the corporations don't want it. Their donors don't want it. So they're lying, as opposed to me saying, guys, I mean, even if you want trans women in professional sports leagues, 98% of the country doesn't agree with you, that you force the leagues to do that. And okay, God bless you. I'm not telling you can't do your opinion, try to convince them, etc. But if you make the candidates run based on that, you're just saying, let's just lose the election, because you're purposely concentrating on an issue where we have 2% popularity when we have dozens of issues where we have 2/3 popularity, 70% popularity, 80% popularity. Like if I run for president, one of my my main policy point will be, I'm only going to do things that are popular. And so go ahead, get super mad. But I am going to do the things that are super popular. And if you get in my way, I'm going to steamroll you. And I'm going to break anyone in my path to make sure I do the things that the American people want. And that's should be obvious in a democracy, but it will be considered radical.
Well, I mean, I feel like with a lot of the focus on polling for paid family leave and for public option being, and like all these things that are very popular, like whenever I've seen that they do more specific polling where they say, okay, if you like a public option, I don't know if they've done one for paid family leave, but if if you like this policy, are you in favor of increasing taxes to fund it? Are you in favor of cutting the budget? Like when they start to get into specifics, it seems like that's where everything breaks down. Like if you have someone, are you in favor of getting money or getting time off? Everyone agrees, but then how to do it is kind of where everything kind of falls apart.
Okay, so now let me tell you my perspective on the same exact polls. So they'll do a poll on Medicare for all, and it'll come in at 70% popularity, right? And that's a fact. Every new poll on Medicare for all, and by the way, even to this day, Medicare for all, 70%. Okay. So then they'll go, well, God damn it, that doesn't help corporate rule at all. All right, everybody at New York Times, gather. Let's figure out how to make this poll worse, because we all hate Medicare for all. Okay, I'm exaggerating. Okay, but then they'll go, okay, what if we ask the question, Medicare for all, but we got to raise taxes on the rich to do it? That's terrible. Comes in at like 75%. Okay, they're like, oh wait, that didn't work. All right, let's ask a poll. Well, what if we had to tax you guys and like really like take away your Hyundai to make this happen? It still comes in at like 61%. And they're like, ah! Okay, so they keep asking questions to try to make it unpopular. And even those never knock it down past 55%. No matter how you ask the question, they cannot get it under 55%. That's because people want Medicare for all, and they definitely want the public option. It's inarguable. And it's also inarguable that Biden's a liar. He said he was going to do the public option and never even proposed it. Never intended to propose it. Never going to propose it because his donors don't want it.
You go.
Okay, there's a political reality here, Cenk, that I think that analysis doesn't necessarily take into perspective, because nobody in Congress wants the other team to get credit for something like paid family leave. Like you could say it's popular and they should both team up to get it passed, but the reality is somebody is going to get credit for it. So if they pass it on the Republicans' watch, the Republicans are going to campaign on it in the next election. So I maybe you could acknowledge or give us your feedback on that kind of political reality where both teams kind of have to come up with a proposal that they can both claim victory on.
Yeah. So Adam, let me give you two different examples.
Okay.
So during the Obama administration, the Republicans were trying to get the Bush tax cuts, which were gigantic. They were actually 3 times the size of the Trump tax cuts for the rich. Okay. But they couldn't make them permanent because Bush was so unpopular, Cheney was so unpopular. So they had a sunset provision in there, it would sunset after 10 years. Okay. But they desperately wanted to deliver for the rich, right? So McConnell went to go negotiate, and Obama made the mistake of sending Joe Biden to negotiate with McConnell. And I say the mistake because Biden is the world's worst negotiator. If he actually believes his own positions, which I don't think he does. Okay. So he went in and he gave McConnell 95% of what McConnell wanted. And I'm going to give you proof of this in a second. And they made Biden and Obama made those tax cuts for the rich permanent, which Bush and Cheney couldn't even do. Okay. Even centrist Democrats were livid. I mean, look, you can tell from this conversation, I got no love for the so-called centrist Democrats, right? But even they were like, Biden, what the hell did you do? You gave away the whole goddamn store, right? And Michael Bennet, who's like the calmest senator in the world from Colorado, wrote a whole book against that one deal. And he's still mad at Biden for giving away everything to the rich. Okay. Now, what was the press reaction to that bipartisan agreement? Congratulations, historic. Obama and Biden are the best. The Republicans are the best. Bipartisan agreement. Yes. Right.
Look, you're making my point, though.
Hold on. So they both get credit and they're both thrilled, right? But whenever you have bipartisan agreement that the corporate press doesn't agree with, Matt Gaetz and Ro Khanna agree we should do anti-corruption bills. They're like, a bunch of radicals. Yeah, no way. Bipartisanship sucks. If it doesn't do the corporate agenda, bipartisanship is the worst. Oh, taxes for the rich, they agreed to that together? Bipartisanship is the best. Okay, come on. It's so obvious. Guys, that's why it's not about the past. Watch. You will see it going forward. Whenever it agrees with the corporate agenda and the status quo, everyone in the press will celebrate it. When they're actually doing something that might help you guys, everyone in the press will hate it.
It sounds like you don't disagree with the reality that whatever policy prescription goes through, it has to be able to be spun as a victory for both sides that both sides can brag about in the next election. Whether or not the media is on board with signing off on it is a different question. So, but
yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's right. So, by the way, I'm happy to paint paid family leave as a giant win for Republicans. You're delivering for the moms you said you always cared about. And that is why 3/4 of your voters want it, and way to deliver for 3/4 of your voters. Like, for example, on Biden, is you can tell from this conversation, there's a lot of things that I think he did not deliver on, and that I don't even think he was honest about. On the other hand, there's a bunch of things he did deliver on. And whenever anybody writes into the Young Turks saying, oh my God, I just got my student debt relieved, I don't have any student debt left, I go, you better vote for Biden. Even if I run against him, you should vote for Biden if you got your student debt relieved, because that's a politician on a rare issue, a rare politician that delivered for you. If a politician delivers for you, hey, the rich do it. When the Republicans and the corporate Democrats delivered trillions of dollars in tax cuts, they deliver for those politicians. They feed them millions of dollars of bribes. And the corporate Democrats and Republicans take it and they go, and they love it and they get really full on it. So you guys should do likewise.
Isn't that a difference between Democrats and Republicans right there that you acknowledge? Would Republicans refund student loan debt?
No way. Yeah.
Okay, no, so that's a giant difference.
Thank you for that question, Adam. Thank you for that question, because I don't want people to walk away thinking there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. We already talked about the social differences, but there's also the Democrats are definitely better around the edges. And it's not just edges. Like, I think Obama gave us 5% change. Is it better than the 50% that Cheney and Bush walked us backwards? Yeah, of course, it's 55% better, right? And Obama, and I think Biden did better than Obama. I think he gave us like 15 to 20%. I'll give him a whole 20% change, and I thank you for that 20%. I appreciate it, and it is a difference. The Republicans would have never done student debt relief. There's a really great provision that they put in the Inflation Reduction Act about how the corporate taxes have to be at least 15% if they're making a profit. If there's a potential poison pill in there, I don't know if they put that in there on purpose, but if they can get past that poison pill and they actually apply that, that would be a terrific law, and the Republicans would have never passed it. The judges make a difference. So that's why I actually am not in favor of, like, if a third party candidate wants to try from the get-go and they get enough momentum and they have a realistic chance, good, I'm open to anything, right? But if it's at the end of the campaign and you're going to get 3% and you're going to swing it over the election over to Trump, I am definitely not in favor of it. Is there a difference between Trump and Biden? Of course there is. There's a world of difference.
Well, look, I want to move on to another broad topic that I think is more interesting. It's interesting that one of our questions under this is, are people on the left too focused on policy? Like, I feel like this conversation is a testament to that being true. So, but the broad topic that we want to touch on, because I think it's so interesting, and we talk about it a lot on the show, so it's a good opportunity to get your feedback on it. Like, a lot of people talk about liberals, progressives, and conservatives, and they kind of really are just using those terms as slurs. Like, I think you and I both grew up with Rush Limbaugh, turning liberal into a dirty word. Oh my goodness, you didn't want to be known as a liberal to your friends. because of all these terrible things that people felt were associated with it. But those terms do, I mean, there is kind of a resurgence of understanding the philosophies of those terms beyond just the name calling. So I think I'd be interested, what you think a liberal, a progressive, and a conservative is. I mean, let's start with the progressive. You've written a book on how progressives are going to basically take over Washington. So what is a progressive?
You just literally did the title of chapter 2 of my book.
Mm-hmm. Well, we both read your book, so I mean,
yeah. So chapter 2 explains what I think a progressive is, and so I define it as a person who wants to expand the circle of liberty. So the founding fathers expanded the circle of liberty in their own way, and instead of just the royalty ruling, they made it so that all white males or property owning white males could vote. In a sense, that's an expansion of circle of liberty, but it's not enough. And then we went on to expand it more and more through the times, and obviously, unfortunately, through the Civil War. So that's a core part of it, and that's a big difference between progressives and conservatives. Conservatives want to keep the wagons small. They're great to the people inside the wagons. They're very moral to them, very decent to them, but they view the others as the enemy, and they circle the wagons and keep them tight. Progressives expand the wagons and include more of us as opposed to them, right? Equality of opportunity is a giant progressive pillar, and it's also the pillar of America, and the third one as well, justice for all. And so it sounds like, well, justice for all, it's so vague, that sounds like, oh yay, like I'm for freedom and oxygen, right? No, I give specific examples of how there are different political factions that are not for justice for all. There actually is the progressive ideology through the policies can prove that they're for justice for all. So I can give examples in all of those categories, but to me, that's what a progressive is.
Why do you think people vote for Republicans, and why do you think people vote for Democrats?
So first of all, you've got party loyalty here, and it's true in all countries. It's also true here. Like when I came to the country when I was 8 years old, and my dad, long story, but a little bit chased out by communists in Turkey. I don't want to overhype it, but there were real threats, and he sold his company, and we came here, land of opportunity, etc. He's a small business owner, and so I grew up and mainstream media told me Ronald Reagan was the greatest hero that I've ever seen. Then they didn't give me a second option. They said Walter Mondale and Jimmy Carter and Dukakis were all weak and soft and losers, and Reagan was a cowboy who was going to save the country. So they brainwashed me into being a Republican. But since I did not grow up with it, I don't have that party loyalty. And there are people who are Republicans and Democrats, and they're never going to change. It doesn't matter if the entire party changes. They're like, no, there's a D on my helmet, and I'm always going to be a D. And you're like, but brother, they're not doing the thing that FDR did, why you signed up to be a D in the first place. They're like, I don't care, hand me the pom-poms. So there's like some element of it that's just brand loyalty, and we're going to fight the other side, and it's part of my core identity. And then there are things that are ideological, of course. There's a lot of right-wingers who unfortunately do not want to expand the wagons. They don't want to expand the circle of liberty. So they're like, and that's why when Trump said, let's ban all Muslims from the country, forget what he actually did with a travel ban when he was president. I'm just talking about, he said on the campaign trail, let's ban all Muslims. And a huge portion of the right wing was like, yes, shrink their wagons, ban the Muslims, right? Whereas Democrats don't think that. They think that why wouldn't a Muslim be just as American as anybody else, right? So there are real differences too.
So it sounds like you're kind of laying out that people that vote for Republicans are either brainwashed or bigoted. Is there any other reason?
I mean,
so seriously, look, are there Republicans who disagree with me, actual voters who disagree with me but have good intent? Of course, right? But guys, when you say brainwash, and I say it sometimes too, we could use other terms. You could say manipulated. That also sounds bad. But you could say influenced, right? And that sounds kind of neutral. So let's go with influence, so it's not a loaded term, right? Does the media influence us? Of course it does. Do politicians influence us? Yeah, that's kind of their point of their ads and their theater that they put on in DC. So do some people get influenced in the wrong direction, both as Republicans and Democratic voters? Of course they do. Of course they do. So what's a genuine Republican? A guy who doesn't want to pay as many taxes. Yeah, I got it. So, and I can call them greedy, and a lot of them are, but there are some that are legitimate who go, hey, listen, I'm paying all these taxes, but I'm not seeing the result. Like, okay, in California, we gave you about $2.5 trillion to deal with the homeless. And Gavin Newsom and the Democrats turn around and go, oh, I don't know where it went. I can't find the money. I built 3 houses. Well, then people justifiably get pissed. And they go, what'd you do with my tax money? As a progressive, I say the same thing. First of all, I say the same thing about California. But outside of that, on the Pentagon. So they can't pass an audit. And they say, oh, yeah, half the money we totally unaccounted for. We probably stole it. Ha ha, we stole like $450 billion. What are you going to do about it? Well, I put them all in jail. That's what I'd do about it. Okay. But I hate that they waste my taxpayer money on that. So I understand Republicans who are mad about that. And that's a genuine issue. And they might be mad about other programs, et cetera. So of course you could be a right winger. You just are a little bit different personality, different priorities, et cetera. But what I don't want to do is baby the Republican voters, which a lot of people in power in Washington do. They're like, oh, don't offend them. They're the most precious little porcelain dolls. Oh my God, Republican feelings. Hillary Clinton hurt their feelings. Hillary Clinton's such a bad person. She hurt their feelings. Well, hey, Republicans, man up. Okay. Stop crying all the time. You're getting annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in favor of babying any voting base. It seems like everyone is very sensitive nowadays.
Yes.
But
Except
I mean,
me.
is there any good intention among conservatives beyond just not wanting to pay taxes? Or any valid concern? Okay.
Look, and I give examples in the book too.
Yeah.
So, for example, what should be the highest marginal tax rate in this country? Well, that's a good question. That's a good debate. So you could say, hey, 91% worked under Eisenhower, and it's not for everybody. It's for the highest earners, right? And it's for not all their money, but the money above like $10 million or something like that. And others could say, no way, that it should be, 25%. And then we have a debate, and conservatives are useful in that debate. Hey, underregulation is a problem. It kills off capitalism and creates corporatism, but overregulation is also a problem. So are conservatives, if they're not, going in some of the disastrous cultural directions, et cetera, are they useful to the debate? Or is it helpful to have a range of ideas ranging from progressive to conservative? Of course it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
go ahead, Sitch.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people that get into politics, specifically on the left, for whatever reason, are people that are policy wonks who are very interested in the mechanisms and the ways that all these specific policies work. And I don't think you're an exception to that. I think you're very interested in all these policies. But I don't think the average American thinks that way at all. I think the average American, like a lot of these policies, are way too complicated for them to really understand. And essentially the way people vote is that they just have these kind of broad moral intuitions about whether they're more in favor of tradition, whether they're more in favor of change, and whether they trust or distrust a certain politician or pundit. And that's who they vote for. And I'm not sure that like a lot of this very explicit hyper focusing on policy that I see on the left is really persuasive to most Americans.
Yeah, and so guys, that's where let's start with a loaded term called bigotry, right? But unpack it. So let's say that they're going to put a mosque in your hometown. What a lot of conservatives are going to naturally feel, partly because they really are conservative, is they're going to feel like, that sounds like too much change. Change makes me uncomfortable, right? Does that mean a lot of Muslims from other parts of town are going to come in? And then it's going to trigger some of the stereotypes they've seen in media, whether it's right-wing media or mainstream media. And they're going to be worried. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it is bigotry, right? But I would say to my friends on the left, just calling them bigots or racists isn't going to help get them into the light, right? So it just walls people off and it makes people hate each other. And sometimes you have to make a point, right? and especially in the extreme cases. And I'm talking about my own background, right? And I keep saying this example, but we interviewed a family that's mixed parties. Half the family's Democrat, half is Republican. They're all over the political spectrum, and the matriarch of the family, lovely little lady in Southern California, and I like her a lot. She's a good person. And at one point, I say, "Look, I'm an atheist now, but I used to be Muslim." And she's like, "Well, thank God, that's at least better." Now, that is actually bigotry, right? And a lot of Muslims would be super offended at that comment. And when I say it on air, they say, "Jake, you should be offended." But I'm not. I know how that thought got into her head. And me yelling at her isn't going to get it out of her head. Me talking to her and then her going, "Oh, you were Muslim? Huh, but you're just like us." That's going to work, because then I'm entering her wagons, right? And so there's a better way to handle these conflicts. I'm not sure I answered your question perfectly, but to me, we can bring the country together on the things that we agree on, and there's a million things we agree on that no one ever talks about.
Right. Well, I mean, the way that I kind of view it is that people who have right-wing moral intuitions are more, there's this idea that they need to look back to tradition to solve problems, and that problems that our society faces comes from changing tradition. And therefore that kind of leads people down the path of, being, quote, more xenophobic. But I think the left operates the inverse of that, where they think all of the problems that exist come from tradition, come from existing systems. Yeah. And so that kind of creates them to be, I would say, bigoted in the opposite direction, where they're more xenophilic, which, maybe if you're on the left, you see a mosque being built in your town, and instead of just being neutral about it, being like, "Oh, okay, there's a mosque there," it's like, "Oh, this is wonderful." And it's kind of like, well, I mean, it seems like we're kind of moving away from the, colorblind, religion blind attitude of kind of liberalism. And I feel like the left's kind of form of bigotry has just gone unnoticed until recently, where it's become a lot more explicitly, anti-white in the past couple of years.
All right. Well, I think that those things are not equivalent, but I can give you an example that backs up what you're saying, and then get to what I think is the right balancing act. So again, using my own background, there was a Muslim brother up in Minnesota, I think. They would do this story like 7-8 years ago. And he said, it's discrimination against me to make me, he works at the grocery store, works as a cashier. And he says, discrimination to make me scan out bacon and ham and pork products. No, brother, that's not discrimination. That's called doing your job. If you don't want that job, go get another one. I love you all back. You got a right to every job, but you don't have a right to say, "I don't want to do the job that you hired me for. I want to do a different job." That's not a thing, right? So, but at the same time, Sitch, I wouldn't say that guy is doing bigotry. He just has an unreasonable ask, right? And so, like, if you like, there's anti-Muslim. I don't know what pro-Muslim means. If pro-Muslim means Muslims are better than other people, then of course not. That's absurd. But if pro-Muslim means Muslims have the same exact rights as any other American, then I'm pro-Muslim. And that is not as bigoted as being anti-Muslim. That's not even close. Like, I'm acknowledging that some people are just uncomfortable with change because that's in their nature, but it doesn't make their position right, and it doesn't make the counter position just as bad. It just, and then in terms of traditions, that's I think a relatively easy one. Then I'll tell you where I land on the spectrum. Are some traditions right and some traditions wrong? Of course, it's so obvious. There are awful traditions here in Central Asian republics. We did a story about this about 7-8 years ago. Some guys still decided to do the old custom. The old custom was you ride in on horseback, you grab a woman you like, you go home, and let's be honest, you sexually assault her. Then her parents come over and convince her to marry you. That was an actual tradition in the Central Asian steppes from hundreds of years ago. Terrible tradition. We should not continue that tradition. So there can be awful traditions, and they could be wonderful traditions. So saying I'm against tradition or I'm in favor of tradition is nonsensical. The question is, where do you draw the line? For me personally, I'm not a big fan of the old traditions. I think they're from olden times, and they apply to olden situations. They don't apply to this situation. So if you say to me, "Oh, this tradition's been around for a couple of thousand years," I think, well, that's a great argument for why I shouldn't follow it. what did a rabbi 2,500 years ago know about my life when he's like, you have to sprinkle the goat blood in the corners of the temple? Do I?
Look, there are traditions, Cenk, that aren't necessarily linked to religion. Like I would call the peaceful transfer of power like a tradition that I'm very much in favor of.
Love that tradition.
Yeah, exactly. So there are traditions that I think the conservative wing of America, they're skeptical of change because they know change often comes at a cost. Like there's this idea that progressives have that progressives are always on the right side of history. Like recently you talked about the no cash bail change that we made and how it didn't exactly work out how we expected it might work out. So there's like a perfect example there where we had a policy. I mean, it's calling it a tradition seems odd, but it is in a little bit of a way a tradition. We're making a change to the way that we've always done it. And something goes wrong and we have to backtrack a bit. So I feel like there is some use for that. And I do see a lot of hubris on the left just thinking that we can make any kind of change whatsoever. And society is, anti-fragile. It's impossible to break society, especially when we're in the situation that we're in right now where the peaceful transfer of power. I mean, I feel like it's kind of up in the air right now, which is just a little bit scary.
Yeah, guys, look, this one is relatively easy. So is every change good? Of course not.
Okay, well, that's great. Look,
right? So Donald Trump was a change. Was that good? No, in my opinion, that was a disastrous change, right? We needed change desperately, but that was change that went in the wrong direction. Mussolini, change that was a disaster, right? Now that's a right-wing change and Trump is right-wing. And by the way, let's note the irony of we want to protect traditions, except peaceful transfer of power. If we lose, we want to commit violence, break into the Capitol, make sure Donald Trump wins, even though he clearly didn't win. Screw traditions. If you're MAGA, admit it. If the traditions are inconvenient to you, all of a sudden you hate traditions. And I'm saying the same thing to the left. Admit that sometimes change doesn't work out. I mean, that's so obvious, right? So my inclination is change is usually better than tradition, because traditions are by definition old rules from a different time and a different circumstance that usually don't apply to us, but sometimes there's wonderful traditions. And so we've got to use judgment to make the case for which one makes sense given the circumstance. Kind of super obvious.
So go ahead, Sitch.
I'll say, where are you on? Because right now it seems like there's a lot of question on what to do with immigration, and even the left is seeming to think that if we have an immigration issue, we need to do something to limit or stop the number of immigrants that are showing up in America.
Sorry, I'm going to answer the immigrant question, but I got actually a really good example of change in the right way and the wrong way. So right now, I think the core of the system in DC has to be changed, because private financing of elections has led to politicians serving private interest, and we've lost our democracy. And in the book, I cite meta studies that prove definitively that we've lost our democracy. We're on the very edge of it. We still have elections, but man, we have to do Herculean work to bring the politicians back to representing Americans. On the other hand, if you say, I want to change the system and I don't want democracy and I don't want the US Constitution and I don't want America, no, I don't agree with that. It depends on how we change the system. I want to change it back to a democracy. I don't want to change it away from a democracy. So of course you got to use judgment. All right, now to immigration. Look, I think immigration is a super tough issue. So when the right wing says it's open borders, we have no borders. Of course, that's not true. It makes people really believe that there are no laws and that there's no law enforcement. That's not true. There's tons of border security guards. We definitely have laws. Most of the people that come in are actually returned. Having said that, are there a lot of people that come in and are not returned? Of course there are. It'd be absurd to say there aren't, right? We have eyes. We can see them coming in. And so, and some of those folks, or all of those folks, if they're asking for an asylum hearing, need to get an asylum hearing. And that's who we are as Americans. We believe, and a lot of them are running away from drug cartels, corrupt governments. A lot of them are Venezuelan right now, especially right now, running away from a really awful system, and what right-wingers would say socialist communist system in Venezuela, also Cubans, that are asking for asylum, and that I think the right wing would want to give them asylum. A lot of us decent Americans would want to give them asylum. So that's why I think one of the answers is an army of judges. And I know right wing's like, oh, boo, justice sucks. Judges suck. No, just like electric fences and electrocute them and sharks and gators and stuff. And I'm and that is some portion of the right wing base, not the entire right wing base. But the judges can process those quicker. So whoever should be here legally should be here. And then those other folks get sent back. So the left, sorry, some people got to get sent back. That's just life. And for the right, yeah, some people got to be let in because they're trying to get here for hope and opportunity. And Donald Trump is the worst human being alive. Because look here, I'm going to read you guys what he just said like a day ago, and to give you a sense of what is extreme and unacceptable. So he said about immigrants, nobody has any idea where these people are coming from. First of all, untrue. We have an excellent idea where they're coming from. That's why I mentioned lately it's been an enormous number of Venezuelans. And he says, we know they come from prisons. Absurd. Maybe a couple came out of a prison, but the overwhelming majority are people who are running from either danger or running to opportunity for their families. We know they come from mental institutions and insane asylums. Yeah, there's one person coming from a mental institution. It's you, Donald Trump. That is insane to say that. That is not anywhere near true. We know they're terrorists. Looney Tunes, total Looney Tunes. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. No, we witnessed it in your administration. Same exact thing as under Biden. It's a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. Direct Nazi quote. Nazi. So you heard me now for an hour and a half. I do not like extreme statements. I believe in balance. But that is literally what Hitler said. Poisoning the blood of our country. What do you mean the blood of our country? Oh, those other people, they're not like us. They're not good white folks. And they're getting into our blood system and our genetics, et cetera. And he finishes, it's so bad, people are coming in with disease and other Nazi stereotype. People are coming with every possible thing that you could have. So if you tell me you're concerned that there are too many illegal immigrants coming or undocumented immigrants coming across the border, and we have to have more security and more judges to adjudicate that and get folks back if they don't belong here, I agree with you. If you say to me they're poisoning the blood of the country and they're all insane and terrorists, no, you're a monster and you're not anywhere near right, and I will fight you to the end of days.
So can you read the post again, the one that you were saying was a Nazi post?
Is that a True Social post?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So he said, no, I'll do it quickly this time. Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from, and we know they come from prisons. We know they come from mental institutions and insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It's a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad, and people are coming in with disease. People are coming with every possible thing that you could have. So the foreigners are diseased. The ones that are not pure blooded are poisoning our blood and bringing in disease and criminals and lunatics, etc. That is Nazi propaganda 101. If it hurts your feelings, take it up with Donald Trump and tell him to stop saying Nazi propaganda. So that's just a fact.
Okay. Do you have a comment on that, Adam, or do you want to move on to?
Well, obviously, I don't disagree that. I mean, I wouldn't tweet that out. That seems a little over the top. I just look. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Trump last time. Like, I understand what he's doing from a political point of view. It's a tad scary. Like, talking about like the broad philosophies. My problem with basically taking a tweet like that from Trump and saying, look, this is part of the conservative philosophy, is I feel like there's some use to the conservative philosophy. We talked about it here. Like if you have people that are upholding the traditions, I think you do need at some level, you do need people who have respect for traditions and norms. Like one of my chief complaints about Donald Trump is that he doesn't really have respect for a lot of the traditions and norms, which, a lot of people say he's not a true conservative because of that. And I do respect that. So I guess the problem that I have is just these broad strokes, and all sides do it, right? The people on the right want to say all progressives are groomers and pedophiles, and people on the progressive side want to say all conservatives are greedy bigots, greedy racists. So somehow our politics, and I don't know how you feel about political polarization, Cenk. I do, like you said something earlier about, it's important not to lie to your audience. And I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, because I do agree with you, but we're only human. Like, we can get things wrong. Like, I do. One of the reasons why we've gained a lot of recent respect for Anna Kasparian, your co-host on The Young Turks, is because she got something horribly wrong on the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. The left has turned Kyle Rittenhouse into a card-carrying Nazi. And that's a horrible thing for a 17-year-old kid. Like, how do you get your life back after that? He's being sued by everyone under the sun, and not to turn this into a Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I really don't want to go down that road. But Anna did something that we completely respect. She said, "Listen, I don't feel I was lying to you at the time. The New York Times, these different publications, I feel like they didn't get the story right. Who knows if they were lying, but I was caught up in this false narrative, and I want to correct the record." A lot of people, they don't have the capacity to do that. So look, I broadly want to ask you about political polarization, because sooner or later we have to put down the guns, or we're going to be in a civil war. It's like, something has to change. And Sitch and I are constantly on the show looking for those signs, and the signs always point to not good. So I'll let you respond.
Yeah, so a lot to say to that. I'm not worried about Kyle Rittenhouse, the rest of
Well,
Kyle
look, I only bring him up in a context.
I got you. I'm going to come back to him in a second. I'm worried about the two people who lost their lives because of Kyle Rittenhouse. They don't have lives anymore because he killed them. But we'll come back to him. So on your point about polarization, Adam, so that's why I don't want people to mistake what I'm saying. And I always distinguish between me and the guys that you'll see in mainstream media. So, for example, on MSNBC, they're calling every Republican candidate except Chris Christie and Nikki Haley fascist, right? Like, and you see it online too. Oh, Ron DeSantis is a fascist. No, Ron DeSantis is a prick, and I pretty much loathe him, but he's not a fascist. He passed discriminatory laws. If you ask me about the Don't Say Gay bill, we can argue about the name, but I don't like that bill. I think that bill is wrong. I think it's discriminatory. The bill about saying slavery has some upsides, it's disgusting. But a fascist is someone who overthrows democracy and institutes basically a dictatorial form of government. And DeSantis has not done that. None of the other Republicans have done that. That is not an accurate label for them. That's an emotional label for them. Whereas Donald Trump actually tried a coup against this country. He had a fake elector plot where they were going to bring in fake electors, literally wrote memorandums on fraudulent elector scheme. Okay, it was an attempt to overthrow our democracy and institute fascism in this country. That is why I'm thinking of running against Biden, because I don't think the Democrats in D.C. understand the actual danger. I think they're full of crap when they say democracy's on the line and it's the most important election of our lifetimes. They always say the same talking points when it doesn't match. But this time, there actually is a wolf. Okay, so no, Mike Pence is not a fascist. No, Bob Dole was not a fascist. No, Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton was not the most important election of our lifetimes. They were guys who were almost totally agree on economic policies. But this one is a giant election, and Biden is I'm afraid that he's got about a 90% chance of losing it to an actual fascist. But it doesn't help when you call every Republican a fascist, because then they don't believe you. When the guy comes along and says, you're poisoning the blood of our country, and these people who don't look like us are diseased and we have to fight against them, that's fascist 101. But mainstream media lost all their credibility. So that's why it's important to make distinctions and don't feed into that polarization if it isn't true. But I've got to say something about Rittenhouse and the coverage. So I haven't changed my position on Rittenhouse 1%. And my position is he should have never gone there with that weapon. He was looking for trouble. He found trouble, and then he killed those two people. And now I got right-wingers who are always like, oh, well, they deserve to be killed. Did you know about their background? One had an issue with mental health, and instead of going to a therapist, Rittenhouse killed him. Yes, right? And the other guy had a skateboard, and he hit him with a skateboard. How dare, if anybody touches me with a skateboard, I kill them. Yes, Kyle Rittenhouse. No, Kyle Rittenhouse should have never gone there. Okay, he's acquitted. They didn't have proof beyond 98% reasonable doubt that it wasn't self-defense. I'm not second guessing the jury, but should he have done that? Absolutely not. Those two people would be alive if Rittenhouse wasn't at a bare minimum an idiot who went there unprepared and then got scared and then shot those people when he shouldn't have. But what's important is the coverage. We have to get the facts right. And so if we got a fact wrong about it, and Anna and I actually have a slight disagreement on whether there were any facts that we got wrong, but she wanted to go above and beyond and say, look, here's the full, let me break it down like scene by scene and show you, here is one of the guys throwing the plastic bag and you hear the shot, and that's why Rittenhouse got scared, etc. And so she broke it down like it was a Zapruder film. And God bless her for it. That's wonderful. We can argue about opinions. We cannot, but we must have the same set of facts. So if we ever get a fact wrong on TYT, and we do from time to time, of course we do, we go and correct it. That has nothing to do with your perspective, your opinion, or your ideology. If you start playing around with the facts, nobody's going to trust you, and they shouldn't trust you. So we are super vigilant about getting the facts right.
Well, I think both those people would be alive if they hadn't attacked Kyle Rittenhouse. And I don't understand why they aren't responsible.
Or also
no, that's disgusting. Like, so the first guy had a mental health.
Look, if I attack somebody with a gun, why am I doing that? Why am I not at fault?
So, Adam, you could argue Trayvon Martin at some point got into a conflict with George Zimmerman. And why did he attack poor George Zimmerman with the gun?
Look, that's a completely different situation. The gun was concealed. He was open carrying with an assault rifle. Like, what kind of moron attacks somebody open carrying with an assault rifle?
Hold on. The first guy, everyone acknowledges, I think his name is Rosenbaum, if I got it right.
Yes.
Everybody acknowledges he had mental health issues. So now we're saying,
and that absolves him.
Hold on. So the guy with mental health issues should have known better than throw a plastic bag. So he deserved to be what? Executed?
Well, he was chasing him down a parking lot to presumably beat the crap out of him and take his gun. I mean,
because he has mental health issues.
No.
Why did you show up with a gun like a goddamn lunatic?
I understand that the guy is crazy. I would imagine most people have to be crazy to just chase after a person with a gun. But what are you supposed to do in a situation? You're supposed to just, well, they're crazy, so I just let them possibly kill
Give them your gun?
No.
Give the guy with the mental health issues your gun?
What is the alternative, I guess?
Guys, first of all, do you acknowledge that he should have never showed up with that weapon?
I don't acknowledge that, no.
Okay, then forget it. We're never going to agree on that.
Look, I only brought it up in the context
wait. There's two different issues, because, I mean, there's a conversation about whether he should have been there or not. And then there's also a conversation of, well, once he's there, or anyone is there, is he justified, if a crazy person is chasing you, are you justified to use deadly force to
the
stop
guy
them?
with the gun has infinite responsibility, okay? So if I come to your house with a freaking AK-47 and I tap on your fucking door with it, and then you come out and go, hey, what the hell are you doing? And I go, what? And I murder you. I go, oh, what? I thought he was going to rush me. And he threw a plastic bag. I was so scared, so I had to murder him. Technically not murder. He was acquitted, but he didn't kill those guys.
We don't need.
By the way, can you also agree? Hold on. Can you guys also agree that Kyle Rittenhouse was a scared little bitch?
No.
Who went there with a weapon? Oh, I'm going to go kill.
Cenk.
I'm going to go kill people.
Cenk,
and then the minute they throw a plastic bag at him, Kyle Rittenhouse was like, ah! And he starts killing everybody.
Cenk, he gave his Kevlar to his friend who was on the roof. That doesn't scream scared little bitch to me.
Yeah. Oh, what? You know what's scary? Look, guys, a guy broke into my house once. This is about 10 years ago, okay? And did I panic like Kyle Rittenhouse and go stab him to death or shoot him to death and go, oh, it was justified. He broke into my fortress. I'm like a man, I murdered him. No, I didn't. We wrestled the guy to the ground. The cops came, and he's alive today. And and a lot of people will say, "Oh, you're a sucker. It could have gone the wrong way. I wouldn't do the same thing." I hear you. You got every right to kill the guy who comes into your house, but I'm super proud that I didn't kill him. But when you're proud that you do kill people in a conflict you started, Kyle Rittenhouse 100% started that conflict. I am never going to agree. He's a terrible guy. I hope the rest of his life is in shambles for taking those two people's lives and not even being sorry about it. He cries in court like a little bitch. I'm so worried about it. Then he comes out afterwards like, haha, I'm a right-wing hero. I kill people. I'm a right-wing hero. I killed them. Boom, boom, boom. They scared me a little bit. One had a skateboard. Another one had a plastic bag. So I killed him. I'm such a hero. Hey, Dick, if I got a gun and you don't, do you have any idea how easy it is to kill you? That doesn't make you a hero. It makes you a coward. That's what Kyle Rittenhouse is.
If you are in his situation, and I know you don't agree with him being there, but I'm just saying your friend asked you, says, hey, my car lot got burned down last night. Can you help me protect my remaining property? And you agree, and you're there, and you have your open carry gun, and you're walking down the street, and some guy who's twice or thrice as big as you, who you saw earlier in the day acting completely insane, threatening to kill people, starts completely unprovoked. You're just walking by, starts chasing you down. And while he's chasing you, his friend pulls out a pistol and fires it in the air. What do you do in that situation? Do you just try to fight the guy, even though he's 3 times your size, and hope he doesn't take your gun, or what?
So 2 things here, guys. Number 1, the guy with the weapon has the responsibility. He has the responsibility to not go in thinking he's goddamn John Wayne, and then the minute there's the slightest conflict to go shoot and kill people.
Well, this isn't.
He has all the responsibility. Secondly, hold on. Secondly, let's break down, because Zapruder filmed this thing.
Yeah.
So Kyle Rittenhouse is now running away because, it turns out I shouldn't have showed up with a weapon in the middle of what I thought was a riot. Color me surprised. Why are you surprised? So he's running away, and Rosenbaum is chasing him. Hold on. Rosenbaum is chasing him. And Rosenbaum throws a plastic bag at him. But he hears the gunshot behind him, right? He turns around, doesn't look where the gunshot came from because he shot the wrong guy. Rosenbaum did not shoot at him. In fact, no one shot at him. It was a gunshot that was off in the distance. He turns around, doesn't look for the guy who shot for him, just shoots the guy with the plastic bag behind him. So you're telling me that's a justified shooting? Well, the jury agrees with you that it wasn't, that he shouldn't go to prison for life. So congratulations. To me, that is not at all a justified shooting. That's a monstrous shooting. I'll tell you your specific answer to your question. There's no goddamn way I would have done that shooting. There's no way, because I'm a decent and moral person.
Right. So he shot the person who was, when he turned around because of the gunshot, the sound of it, he shot the person who was like a foot away from him, trying to grab the gun out of his hands, who he saw.
He wasn't a foot away.
He was very close to him. He was a couple feet away from. He was very close to him.
Sitch, what do you mean? Sitch, you're saying that you're okay that he shot the wrong person.
No, he shot the right person.
The person who didn't shoot at him. The person who didn't shoot at him. Do you agree?
Wait. Okay. If I have a gun, open carrying, and I'm legally justified and to be in this area, and I'm walking by, and a person who I saw acting completely insane starts chasing me, and Kyle testified he said he was going to kill him, starts chasing me, and I'm running away. Wait. And I'm running away. I'm doing my duty to flee. Kyle could have immediately just shot him, right? But he didn't. He's trying to get away. He's trying to get away from this guy. He's trying to get away from the situation. But he's reaching a point where either the guy's faster than him, or he's running down an alleyway where he's getting blocked off because there's people all around, and he's running into a car lot. And he turns around, and this guy's right on top of him, and he's about to grab him. Yeah, I'm going to shoot that guy.
Okay.
I can't imagine how you can't say it's justified to shoot that guy.
Okay, sorry, but like if you go with a weapon and provoke somebody, provoke them.
How you provoke them?
And then it turns out, hold on, and then they bum rush you with a plastic bag and you shoot them. Yeah, you're a coward.
Yeah, but just existing with a gun is not provoking someone. I mean, it's the opposite. You're saying, don't screw with me. I have a gun.
Sitch, why don't you give your home address and we'll all show up with guns and see if you find it provoking.
Well, there's a difference between showing up someone's private house with a gun. Wait, this wasn't Rosenbaum's house. This was on public property. Watches on private property that Rosenbaum had no right to be on.
Okay,
because he
by
was
the
on
way,
the car lot.
do
That
not give your home
Rittenhouse
address.
was protected.
Yeah, thank you. I won't.
Okay, I
Right.
want to be clear. Do not give your home address. Do not go to Sitch's home. Do not
Look,
go to anyone's
Look,
home.
this isn't our first rodeo, Jake.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, but like, because Kyle Rittenhouse was, I mean, they said afterwards in the trial, you know, because they're trying to say there's no sort of liability, it didn't happen. But there's a lot of evidence that the people that own the car lot asked these people to come there and protect their property. So Kyle had like 1,000 times more justification and actually a legal right to be on their private property, where Rosenbaum and these other people did not.
Look,
Yeah,
we can't.
you're never going to convince me that executing those two guys because he was a little scared bitch and he should have never been there it was the right thing to do. And so again, technically not an execution.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I'm like,
okay,
Jake, what are you doing?
But to me, if someone attacks me with a plastic bag, there's a 0% chance I would kill them with a gun.
Okay, so well, one last question on this, and then we'll kind of drop it because we're not going to agree.
Oh, by the way, and I know a lot of people disagree, but I would there's also a 0% chance I would kill someone if they attack me with a skateboard. So, okay,
even if you're on the ground and a mob of people is chasing you.
Yeah, a murderous mob is after you. I mean, that changes the context quite a bit.
Right.
Not only that, you couldn't.
No. You guys
look. They weren't accepting 911 calls.
Don't change the facts.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said murderous mob. None of those people. Like, well, how do you know that the guy was going to try to?
They were yelling, "Get him! Get him!"
No,
I heard the tape.
Oh my God!
When Kyle Rittenhouse,
skateboarder and a murderous plastic bag.
Cenk, have you seen? Cenk, I'm not sure you've seen the videos.
When Kyle is running towards he's like literally running towards police vehicles, and everyone should be able to see this. It's very clear. So it's not like he's running into the dark alleyway to escape. He's running towards the police. Well, because somebody tripped him. He falls over while he's on the ground. People start attacking him, including the guy while he's on the ground, hits him with a skateboard.
Somebody hit him in the back of the head with a rock and knocked him to the ground.
Yeah, okay. So look, guys,
that's true. You dispute that?
You all agree. You all acknowledge. All of this started.
It's on video.
When he shot the wrong guy.
He shot
the wrong
guy. He shot the right guy.
He
shot the guy who was coming
guy.
after him. What do you mean?
Oh, guy was coming after. Whoa, those plastic bags, they're going to get you one day. What if he put it over his head and held it for 30 minutes in the middle of the crowd?
Well,
Maybe
I mean,
Rosenbaum could have killed him then. He shot the wrong guy. The guy who did this shot wasn't even shooting at him, and it wasn't Rosenbaum. So you guys are justifying the death of a guy who didn't even shoot at him. But hey,
but he was 2 to 3 times bigger.
You guys sound super scared. And to me, it sounds like you're driving like the thing that you said you wanted to avoid, which is everybody getting guns and going to the streets. That's a disaster for this country. I'm worried to death about what's going to happen when everybody gets super scared, grabs their weapons and goes into the streets. And I'm telling everyone on the left, the right is they're so scared, they'll never listen. But the left, do not go in the streets with guns. Do not resort to weapons. Violence is a terrible idea. And the left is never going to win violence. It's immoral. It's a disaster, and it destroys this country. Stop the goddamn violence.
So, well, Cenk, I'm glad I asked you to turn your mic up earlier. Look, we're at about 2 hours, Sitch. So, do you want to look? I don't look. If there's anything you want to say on Rittenhouse, I don't want to cut anyone off here. Obviously, I didn't bring it up to have an argument about Rittenhouse. So
it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah,
it's good content.
I think my position is pretty clear.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like we could have I mean, there's a lot. I don't know. There's a million things I could say on the Rittenhouse stuff, but
can I just say one other thing?
Yeah,
not about Rittenhouse, but overall. But in the spirit of balance, which I've been arguing for this entire time, at the same time, we cannot have people on the left saying, "Oh, criminality in the streets is no big deal." A homeless person who is super high on drugs or is struggling with mental health issues is a person you should go hug and invite into your backyard and have a picnic with. Okay, no, we have to be decent to those folks, but at the same time, we have to be realistic and not naive. So when people go in mass and loot a store, that is not the voice of the unheard. That's the voice of dudes who want iPhones. Okay. And so the left cannot say, oh, that criminality, it's no big deal, no big deal. Hey, you're worried about someone who's mentally unwell in the streets. You're worried about a guy who's high on meth or fentanyl in the streets. That's no big deal. They punch people in the subways. They smear crap on people. That's no big deal. That's the working poor that they attack 9 out of 10 times. It is a big deal. We don't need justice for some. We need justice for all. I happen to be super mad at Rittenhouse because I thought he had no business there, and that those two people could be alive if he didn't go there and he didn't panic. But I don't want it to be confused for, no, I believe in a free-for-all, and that we should, whether you're the right, the left, the homeless, or the housed, we all should get weapons, and weapons, and attacking each other is no big deal. No, I don't want anyone to attack anyone. I want justice for all.
Well, you did speak out strongly against Hassan in your talk. And look, I totally respect that. There was one moment where Hassan even jokingly, he's making a case where shoplifting is fine. And he actually tells the audience, yeah, that's okay. Go ahead and keep doing that. And you're like, no, don't do that. So you speaking up against him, I think, is something that we can definitely agree on. Sitch, you want to make a comment?
Well, do you think people that own stores, do they have, like, if the police are not responding to the break-ins, to people burning down their stuff, do they have a right or justification to defend their property or ask other people to defend their property?
Yeah. So look, to me, that is a fact pattern that is enormously different than Rittenhouse. So if you go into somebody's store and you're stealing their crap and you're endangering their life, I hope they don't shoot you. I hope you don't shoot them. I want everybody to walk out of there alive and reform their lives. But you can't be like shocked and chagrined when you put a gun in somebody's face and they shoot back. So that's different than somebody who's armed and someone who's not armed. So you come in, but by the way, if they're stealing the candy and they're not armed and they're running, don't shoot them. I want the cops to arrest them. I want there to be justice. But execution is not the right justice. But if they got a weapon, they come into your store, to your house, you got every right to shoot them. I get it. I do not want you to endanger yourself or your family, and you need to protect people. But don't go and try to provoke violence by showing up with weapons where they don't belong.
Well, like if you're like because in the Rittenhouse situation, if you're a first generation immigrant and people have destroyed one of your car lots and you're afraid they're going to destroy your second one, do you think it's allowed or justified to say, I need people to protect this, my remaining property?
So guys, that's where we can get into an individual moral difference, right?
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people would say, you're going to try to destroy this business that I worked my whole life for. First of all, I hope you have insurance, but I get it. You're super mad about it. And you want to defend it with guns.
Sure.
And you're probably going to get be able to do it, and a jury's probably going to acquit you. But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't kill anyone over property. And so if you say that, oh, that's naive, okay, that's fine. But I'm not killing anybody over property.
Okay. I guess that is the moral difference. I think people who destroy for no reason, not even stealing, but just destroy for no reason other people's, businesses that they've worked their whole lives to build, I don't really shed tears over them getting shot.
Okay, so it's a moral difference. I shed tears in both directions because I think that destroying that poor guy's business, how did that help fight the man? It doesn't
exactly. Yeah,
it's completely misdirected. It's wrongheaded. And look, guys, the riots sometimes are terribly misdirected, but it are to some degree the voice of the unheard. The looters, on the other hand, are just opportunists. And if the left doesn't acknowledge that, they're being ridiculous. Nobody hey, I'm really mad about somebody shot Trayvon Martin, so I'm going to go steal a TV. That doesn't make any sense at all. No, if you're going to protest. But once you cross into looting, it's criminal, and it needs to have criminal consequences. But I hope to God it's not death that's the consequences. So I'm not in that camp. I wouldn't shoot them.
Look, we're right at about 2 hours, but we're more than happy to go longer. Like, you obviously want to talk about your presidential run. I didn't know we were going to get sidetracked on Kyle Rittenhouse, so let's talk about that. So you're basically running for president. I saw the announcement. I guess the first time you said it was on Breaking Points with Sauger and Crystal. So, and a lot of people, look, you seem to have a very realistic understanding of what you were saying. I think a lot of people in the media mischaracterize that as you were just completely out of it. You didn't know, like you were kind of throwing this air ball. So what is your response to that?
Okay, first of all, there is no way that mainstream media would ever be fair to a progressive and to an outsider and to a populist, and I'm all three.
Right.
So I have braced for impact. They did it to me when I ran for Congress. There's no way they aren't going to be absolutely vicious to me. And the Republicans already hate me. Some portions of the left are not going to defend me. So I'm going out there knowing that I'm going to get hit on all sides. And so why am I doing that? Well, because in my opinion, the iceberg is right in front of us, and it's super obvious. Right now, Biden is trailing by 24 points on the economy. He's 13 points lower than when he beat Trump. 13 points lower. Wake up, Democrats. Wake up. If you don't believe that that's a dire warning, you're in a MAGA-like cult. No, Biden will recover. Biden is so charismatic. He's going to make up 24 points on the economy. Even you don't believe that. Nobody believes that. He won by 4.5 points on the popular vote, but only won by 44,000 votes, which is microscopic in the electoral college. So in order for any Democrat to win the electoral college, they need a comfortable 5-point lead. They need a 5-point lead. Don't kid yourself. You will lose the electoral college. And right now, in an average of the polls, Biden is losing to the monstrous, idiotic Donald Trump by 2 points. Democratic voters, wake up, snap out of it. No one could be losing to Donald Trump. He's the most unpopular politician, not only of our lifetimes, maybe in American history. And Biden is losing to him, and he needs to beat him by 5. He doesn't have the charisma to be able to make that comeback. So what I am is an icebreaker. So I'm telling you guys, you've got to get people in this race. If I'm the only one in the race, I'm not sure that's realistic enough. But I want to get to a point where I'm at 20, 25 points. Use me as a proxy for the voters. If I go in the race, not 100% yet, we'll make the decision by next week. But if I go in the race, use me as a proxy for getting others into the race. Whitmer, Shapiro, Bashir, these are all great Democratic governors that would instantly start in a 5-point lead against Trump instead of being in a deficit against Trump. Why are we purposely going in with the weaker candidate? That's an incumbency is not an advantage at the presidential level. It's an albatross around your neck. They can criticize you for everything that you did in office. Andy Bashir is the most popular governor in the country, and he's a Democratic governor in Kentucky. Why don't you go with the better candidate? Democracy's on the line. So get me to 25 points, and I guarantee you that you're going to have a real primary. All those governors will come in, and Biden will drop out. And Biden is being intensely selfish. Mm-hmm. He's saying, no, my legacy is more important. I want 2 terms instead of 1 term. But brother, 72% of Democratic voters don't think you're even going to make it past the 2nd term. They think that you're a weak candidate. They want a different candidate, but you're bottling up all the candidates because, unfortunately, the Democratic Party has become authoritarian. You are not allowed to be opposed to the dear leader. And you sound like, honestly, the DSC sounds like MAGA, saying you're not allowed to be opposed to our leader. So wrong, get in the goddamn race. And so, look, man, the Democratic voters are dying for an alternative. And I tried to get other progressives in the race, then I tried to get other governors in the race. I tried to get Jon Stewart into the race. So if no one else has the courage to do it, I'll do it. And I don't care how impossible it is. I don't care that if I get embarrassed and I don't raise enough money, I stay at 2% or whatever it is. I don't care. But we've got to move this ship so we don't lose the country to a fascist.
A lot of people don't know that you've previously run for Congress. I mean, I've heard you say that was super demoralizing. What was that like?
It was probably the worst experience of my life. And so I'm purposely going into a minefield that is probably going to be intensely worse than the worst experience of my life. Okay. And so what happened in that race was, and this is why congressional races, and especially Senate races, are near impossible. And that's why we have the corrupt Congress that we have now. As you know, as a part of and a co-founder of Just Democrats, I am super proud of the miracles that we pulled off, including AOC beating Crowley. Those are miracles on top of miracles, okay? But in a normal congressional run, if you're a progressive outsider like me, mainstream media comes in, they lie about you, and then they take away the mic. And I remember asking an LA Times reporter, hey, you're going to write this smear job on me and pretend that I'm a sexist, racist, anti-Muslim, whatever you're going to call me, right? But are you guys ever going to cover the policy in this race and how me and the Democratic alternative are just like day and night? We're completely different policies, right? And the reporter, to be fair to him, he was at least honest, said, no, probably not. No, we'll never cover the policies.
Wow.
And he was right. They never covered the policies. They never gave the mic back to me. And so if I lived in that district, I would have voted against me. Why? Because they never got to hear my side. So if I read this anti-Muslim guy who's a sexist, racist right-winger is running for office, I'd vote against that guy. So once they smear you and never give the mic back to you, it's irrecoverable, okay? And so they'll probably do the same thing with me, but I'll go on the Adam Sitch show, I'll go on Hassan's show, I'll go on Destiny's show, I'll go on whatever shows will have me, and I'll run this obstacle course. And I don't mind losing. And I've already been embarrassed. I don't mind it. Come at me, bro. Okay. So
there's a lot of people on the right who've kind of forced themselves into the conversation by doing that exact strategy. I mean, Ramaswamy is the perfect example of that. He's done a lot of these shows, and I would argue that's what got him on the stage in the Republican debate. Is it too late for that though? I'm wondering if are you polling? What is going to be the make or break for you when you decide?
So, is it too late? No. It's actually, even though it's late in the process, and I'm worried about the other governors and other Democrats being able to get into the race, and I have a plan for that too. It is not too late. In fact, if I had entered earlier, the press would have been 10 times more vicious.
Oh, okay. So you took that into consideration.
Yes. So if I enter now, I think that there's a lot of part of the press, all the way through Bill Maher and Joe Scarborough, who are going to go, well, we don't like that guy, but he's not wrong that we need another candidate.
Yeah,
right?
I think Biden loses. Like, I honestly think Biden loses. Like, if this inflation gets even worse, which all signs point to yes, I don't see how Biden stands a chance.
Yeah, I think, look, guys, here's the definitive number on why Biden has a over 90% chance of losing. On jobs, Biden created, and this is a guy who might run against Biden as early as next week, but I'm telling you, because I'm fair and honest, Biden did a great job on jobs. I think he did a poor job on other things, but on jobs, it's literally record unemployment. And he created more than twice as many jobs as Donald Trump pre-COVID, which as being as fair as you can be to Trump. We're not counting the COVID job losses. So 3 years to 3 years, Biden created more than twice as many jobs as Donald Trump, right? Now, right. The Marquette poll that just came out, Trump has a 19-point lead on jobs. Now, that is counterfactual. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why? Because Biden is terrible at being a candidate. He's one of the worst candidates. Remember, he ran for president many times. He got embarrassed every single time. The only reason he won this time, and he won by a razor-thin margin in the Electoral College, is because Obama, Clyburn, all the Democrats coalesced, all of mainstream media, and said, Biden, 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 Biden. And he ran against the most unpopular politician in American history, Donald Trump. That's the only reason why this terrible candidate won. Now, on an issue he should be kicking ass on, he's 19 points behind. No one can say he's a good candidate. He's a terrible candidate. Here, let me tell you what I would do if I was Biden, so you get a sense of the contrast. So I'm not just doing a destructive critique. I'm telling you what he should do. If I was Biden, I'd come out and do a press conference and say, look, I double Trump. I more than double Trump. I might triple Trump in the number of jobs that I create. I'm the best job creator president in American history. I'm sorry, but George Washington can kiss my ass. He didn't come close to creating as many jobs as I did. I'm the best at creating jobs, and that's a fact. I want everyone in the press to fact check me, more than twice as many as Donald Trump, and record unemployment. And what would happen? Because he said kiss his ass and George Washington, blah, 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 everybody, and he's the president of the United States. Literally every media outlet, not just in the country, but in the world would cover, right? And then they would be forced to do a fact check. They would be forced to do a fact check, and they would find out, oh, he's right. Holy cow, we have to tell the whole country how many jobs Biden created. What does Biden do instead? Jobs and no malarkey, no joke, no joke. And you're like, what? What did he say? And then he's down 19 points on jobs. Put me in, coach. Put me in.
The Fox News narrative would be, and I don't know if this is true or not. My intuition says we came off of COVID when we literally shut down the country. So the jobs that he's created are really just people going back to work. So,
yeah, but it doesn't matter in terms of the rhetoric. Like,
no,
it would be
no,
like good
look,
rhetoric, you know.
I
and
totally
it would be
agree.
kind of aping a lot of Trump's format, which I do think is a good idea. I do think
by the
Biden
way,
would
Adam,
gain from doing that.
So I agree with Sitch here. And Adam, think about it. After that blustery speech that I just gave as an example, what would happen? So the Republicans would come out and say what you said as a counter, right? And you're just saying it that they would say it, right? You're right.
But look, I agree. The left-wing media would completely turn it into he's, Jesus come down from heaven to save us. Look,
right. But and then the Trump people are all of a sudden in that situation on the defense. They're like, yeah, he created 14 million jobs, and Donald Trump only created 6.4. Donald Trump's a tiny little man. But as they're saying, everybody's talking about the 14 million jobs that Joe Biden created. By the way, to you guys in the audience, to everyone watching, be honest. Did you know that Joe Biden had created 14 million jobs?
Oh,
so
no,
isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing that a guy who's so disgruntled with Joe Biden that he's thinking of taking this, like running against him, and I know that I'm going to get character assassinated when I run against him. That's how much I want to run against Joe Biden. But I'm being fair and honest with you, and I'm making a better case for Biden than he makes for himself. Can you not see what a terrible candidate he is? Now, all of politics is about media and marketing. So Democrats, it is not classy to stay silent about your record. It's not classy to lose to a fascist and go, yeah, but I wasn't mean. Throughout the campaign, I said, you have a malarkey. No, sorry. You got to fight. You got to fight. You're not going to beat Trump without a fight. I mean, Joe Biden has outsourced fighting Trump to Chris Christie. Chris Christie's a Republican.
Right.
Isn't there a single Democrat in the country? Guys, people say like, Cenk Uygur is going to be Joe Biden. Yeah, right. Okay. Right. Well, why am I the only one thinking about getting in the race? Because none of the rest of you would raise your goddamn hand. Look, if we're going to hit the iceberg, I'm raising my hand.
I don't think people vote on policy, Cenk. Look, I'm ready to endorse you right now just because you called this the Adam and Sitch show. So, like, policy is not.
Listen.
Look, policy is not really why people vote on this
let me ask you something about, because this is the number one thing I assume is going to come up. If you do run, is that everyone's going to say you weren't born in America, so you can't actually be president. Yep. So is the plan kind of that you were laying out just to enter the race to get to 20-25%, and then if other people that you like join, you'll drop out and throw your support behind them?
No. So one of the reasons I'm running is because of the mythology that naturalized citizens cannot run for president. I'm sick of it. It's
I thought it was a law.
No, not at all. So let me explain.
Okay.
So in the original Constitution, it says that you have to be born in America to be president. And we all learned that in 8th grade civics class. So we all have that implanted in our heads, right? And I had it implanted in my head. So when I thought about this and I got desperate seeing I can't believe nobody else is running as Biden, I went and read the law review articles on this issue. And it turns out the case law on this is crystal clear. The Fifth Amendment amended the earlier part of the Constitution, as the Fifth and 14th Amendment amended tons of the original Constitution. And in Schneider v. Rusk, the Supreme Court said very clearly that the Fifth Amendment amended the Constitution and naturalized citizens have the same exact rights as natural-born citizens. So if all I do, it's too an important election to like get sidetracked on an issue like this, but I'm doing it for both reasons. But if in a normal election, all I did was get in the race so that we could take this issue to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can finally say, of course you're allowed to run for president. Schneider v. Rusk is so clear. All of our Fifth and 14th Amendment jurisprudence is super clear. Same exact rights. Of course you could run for president. What I would have done is in some ways liberated 25 million Americans. And guys, if you're not a naturalized citizen, you've never experienced this, but I can guarantee you, everyone in the audience who's a naturalized citizen will say, "Oh my God, that's so true," when I say the next thing. In our existence, in our life here in America, every one of us has had hundreds of times when people went, "Oh, you weren't born here? Ha ha, you can't run for president." Now,
Wow.
look, the people who say that, they don't mean harm by it. They just remember from 8th grade civics class. But what it does to us 25 million Americans from all different parts of the world, and remember, we're the ones who followed the law. We're the ones that came in the right way, the legal way, the documented way, in every way, right? We're the ones that came loving this country. You're saying to all of us, without knowing it, you're not fully American. You're not really one of us. We haven't really let you into the country yet. And when I know that the case law on this is the exact opposite, I cannot stomach it. I cannot abide by it. So if all this my election does is give those 25 million Americans 100% of the rights that they deserve, then I'll be super glad I ran, no matter what happens to me.
Right. I mean, it'll be interesting. It definitely would be a very interesting court case. I think it's an uphill battle, especially considering the composition of the Supreme Court right now.
No, I don't think
But,
so.
no.
Here, I'll make a prediction.
Yeah.
I think if we go to the Supreme Court, and if I run, it'll almost certainly go to the Supreme Court. We win 8-1. That's my prediction.
Wow. Who's the one?
Clarence Thomas.
Okay.
And
listen, I want you to run just for that. I want to see that case.
Yeah. No, because guys, I'm a lawyer. That doesn't mean I'm right, but it means I can read law review articles and I understand what they're saying. And I understand 5th and 14th Amendment jurisprudence. And so there's almost no way you could vote against naturalized citizens having these rights, because there's overwhelming precedent. The only way you're going to vote against it is Clarence Thomas will say original intent. The founding fathers hated people who weren't born in the country. They hated black people. They hated women. And we got to go with original intent. And it's a preposterous argument, but he's Clarence Thomas. So it'll be 8-1.
Right. Well, let me ask you one last question, because you've been very generous with your time.
Well, no, let me ask, because
okay.
like it's a great narrative, Cenk, that you put forward here, and I respect it a lot. Like, one of the things that bothers me about what's going on the left, like, we are very much, raw America. Like, naturalized citizens chose this country. They chose to be Americans, which, I mean, that's amazing. So if you can do that, I think that's a great story, and hopefully
Definitely.
we can get more people on the left going in that direction. I mean, I've seen it at some of the DNC. Some of the DNC national conventions, like we've had turns where I thought, okay, the Democrats are going to not be embarrassed Americans any longer. So I just
no, and I want to be super clear about that. And I think sometimes people on the left make this mistake. No, I love America. I love the American flag. It wasn't an accident that we came here. We chose to come here, and we chose to come here because we love the idea of America. And to my brothers and sisters on the left, that doesn't mean America's perfect. That doesn't mean that America didn't make a ton of mistakes. It did. But it means that the idea of America is right, and we need to strive towards that idea to make it a more perfect union. And at least the system allows us to do that. So we've got to use every tool in our toolbox to use the Constitution, use the courts, use democracy to get back the true idea of America, where we have equality of opportunity and justice for all.
Okay, Sitch, you want to ask?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, no one could ever accuse you of not, being active. Like, you ran for Congress, and now you're talking about running for president. You're definitely, bringing the policies you want into action. Do you think that there's too many people, on this kind of political pundit space that we exist in, that, they don't actually do anything to enact the change? They just kind of talk about it on the internet.
Yeah. Well, look, so there's a couple of different categories here. So for the folks who generally talk about politics but don't get actively involved, I'm not going to hate on them. Look, their job isn't necessarily to be activists. They want to just do media. They just want to do news. They just want to do a talk show. It's a free country, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. If on top of that, you want to get more actively involved and try to bring hope and try to bring right policies to the American people like I do, then great. That's, in my opinion, that's even better, right? But then there's a third category of guys who maybe tried one thing in their lives but they want to burn everything else down because it's about their ego. Oh God, we did this thing back in 1973 or 2021, and we're going to talk about that for the rest of our lives. And so when you guys try to do something constructive, we're going to try to burn it down because we're filled with envy, etc. All right, that's super destructive. It's a free country. You could do that as well, but don't expect me to help you. Expect me to fight you. And so when you punch me in the face, don't get surprised when I punch you back, and don't cry about it. And they all do. They always do. They always come in and go, oh no, that guy's trying to help people. Boo, boo. I don't believe it. I'm a cynic. I'm a pessimist. And he didn't do the thing that I wanted. Boo, burn it down. Boo. Okay. All right. And then they'll call you names. They'll lie about you. And then when I counterattack, every time they catch feelings. I mean, they're like catching feelings out of the sky. And they're like, oh, he said something mean about me. I mean, I was calling him a CIA. I was calling him Nazi. I was calling him this. I was calling him that. I can't believe that he called me something back. Well, believe it. And by the way, soon the establishment Democrats will believe it. And then, by the way, after I'm done with them, Trump, come get some, brother. Come get some. Because I'm not a normal Democrat. I will destroy Donald Trump. He's a spoiled little baby. And I'm going to fight him like no Democrats ever fought him. Hey, Donnie, where's your goddamn grades, you loser? You're still hiding him from high school, you pathetic loser. Your dad was right about you. You're never going to amount to anything. Okay? All you did was you took his money and then you burned it, Donnie. Where's the money, Donnie? How about all the money you raised from your voters? Where's all that money, Donnie? You stuffed it into your pockets, didn't you? That's why you won't help Giuliani. You didn't help the January 6th guys. A lot of talk about the January 6th guys. The true American patriots, plus Antifa, plus tourists. And then, okay, then why don't you back it up? They gave you the money to help with legal defense. Why aren't you giving it to the patriots of January 6th? Because you're greedy and you can't run a business. You're a loser. And that's why you go, oh, I need it. I'm going to stuff it into my pockets. The guy ran a fake charity and a fake university. Pathetic. He is pathetic in every way. He's the weakest, smallest, most insecure man we've ever had in politics. When's the last time you saw a Democrat kick Trump's ass like that, waiting around for Chris Christie to do your job? Step up and do the job. Go fight Trump. Go beat Trump. Come on. I mean, you need a talk show host, an online talk show host to do Joe Biden's job for him. Joe Biden, wake up. You're 24 points behind on the economy. Get up and fight back or step down. Get out of here. Just go retire. By the way, I'll end on this. If Joe Biden retires now, he's a hero. He beat Trump the first time. It was with a small edge in the electoral college. Who cares? He beat him. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And you know what? You did 20% of your agenda, which is like 4 times more than a normal Democrat. It's not good enough, but thank you. You retire a hero. Everybody talks about how you beat Donald Trump, and then you were so magnanimous, you stepped down, even though you could have run for office. But if you don't step down and you lose to Donald Trump, which according to any sane political analyst, you right now have about a 90% chance of losing to Donald Trump, then you will be known in history as the guy who lost the country to the fascists, the guy who lost democracy because he was so selfish and he wanted a second term. And even though he saw the handwriting on the wall a year before the election, he thought, me, my ego. And he ran and he lost democracy. That's what you'll be known as, Joe Biden. And that's a fact.
Well, I hope you're announcing, look, I want you to get in this race. I want you to get to 25% just for the entertainment value, obviously.
I want you to debate Trump. This would be great.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Are you kidding me? And guys, isn't it sad that we haven't had any Democrats who could actually take on Donald Trump? Like, you look forward to Joe Biden in a debate with Donald Trump? No, nobody does, right?
Well, Marianne Williams, I mean, she'd get eviscerated. So
yeah, I mean, you put me in a debate with Trump, and I'll tell you this. I'm serious. He will leave before the debate ends. He will run like a coward. He cannot stand on a stage with me for 90 minutes. There's no chance. I will humiliate him to no end until he leaves, potentially crying. from the stage.
What would you hit him with? Like Trump University? What would be some of the punches you'd
I'll
throw?
give you just one example, and then I'll save it. If I run, I'll save it for the campaign. I'll save it for the debates, etc. But
Okay.
give you one example. So the guy has had to admit that his charity was fake. He paid a $2 million fine. So MAGA, catch all the feelings you want. Here, I'll send you the feelings. Okay. But you can look it up. You can look it up. Trump paid a $2 million fine for running a fake charity. He had to pay the money back to black kids going to college, like kids with cancer, veterans. He's a disgusting human being. And so, but what did he spend the money on? Because it was theoretically a charity, right? He bought giant paintings of himself. If you knew someone in your real life, Bob in accounting, and you went to his house and Bob's like super proud of his charity. And you're like, oh, Bob, wow, I didn't know you had a charity. What does your charity do? It bought this painting, this 10-foot painting of me.
Wow.
You would say I got to get out of the house. Bob is mentally unbalanced, right? And Bob is a psycho, and Bob is a terrible guy. That's who Donald Trump is. Who buys giant paintings of himself? A psychopath. So, okay, MAGA, go ahead. Oh, no, yeah, if you're running a charity, man, you don't want to help people. What you want to do is you want to get a 6-foot painting of yourself. 2 of them, by the way, 2 of them. You want to get 6-foot painting of yourself, and because that shows you're a real man, when you make everybody come in and look at a weirdo, psycho painting of yourself, okay? So, guys, why do I do that? We know he's the bigot, the racist, the sexist. Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and MSNBC has already said that 2,000 times. That's not the point. The point he's a weak little man, undercut his strength. He never made any money. He got all of his money from his daddy and from NBC. Okay. And he blew it. He's gone bankrupt 6 times. He can't run anything. He's totally incompetent. And like a child, what happened? When the American people took his toy away, which was the American government, he's like, then I'm going to break the toy. I'm going to break the American government. Give me fake electors. Let's just lie. Hey, Georgia, find me 11,760 votes, Yeah, come on, guys. He's pathetic. You're following a beta. He's a total beta. He's scared of everything. And what does he say? Me, 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 me. He rips off veterans. You guys are proud of supporting a guy who rips off veterans? Come on.
Look, I got to ask this, Cenk. Do you hate Trump supporters? I just want this to be crystal clear.
Yeah. So Trump supporters are a giant range. There is no one Trump supporter. There is no one Democrat. These are a spectrum, a range of people. So within the Republican Party, there are, on the rational side of that spectrum, there are plenty of good people. Maybe they're misdirected, but they mean well. They mean well for the country. And here, I'll give you, and even for the middle of the Trump voters. Okay, you know what? I'll get to the middle in a second. The butt end of the Trump spectrum, the 37% who say you could shoot someone and I'll be thrilled, okay? And I'm happy to support him no matter what he does. Those guys are hopeless. If the Democrats are trying to get their votes, they're wasting their time. Total waste of time. Do not try to get their votes. Do not try to appease them. Don't do that. But for the middle of that Republican spectrum, guys, I need you to just look in the mirror and say, do you love this country? So they did a fake elector scheme. They were literally electors that they knew they had not won. They got them to sign fraudulent memos. They have now admitted it in court. They've said, yes, we're guilty. We were not the real electors. We had lost the election. We knew we lost the election, but we're fake. And we were going to do basically a coup where we were going to pretend that we won the election. Don't you love America? Don't you love America? And so when Bernie Sanders lost, I didn't go, oh, let's raid the Capitol. Let's do fake electors. Let's do this. Let's do that. I said, man, I wanted that brother to win so much, but he didn't. And I respect America. I respect our democracy. So the main job is to win over independents. But there are plenty of people who are Republicans and who might even support Trump that I think are misdirected. And I'll say one last thing that's super important. And I say this throughout my book too. Guys, there's one redeeming quality that conservatives have that is like really positive. the voters, not the politicians, the voters genuinely hate corruption. And that's the center of the Republican voters. And for that, I respect them, and they're right. And mainstream media drove them out of their minds, because mainstream media comes in and goes, no, they're not corrupt. They took millions of dollars from Johnson & Johnson and Raytheon and ExxonMobil, and they just happen to agree with ExxonMobil and Pfizer, et cetera. No, that's corruption. That's bribes. They're corrupt. So if you think corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats are corrupt, you are right, my Republican friends. And Democrats, please wake up. So the progressives are already have awoken, if you will. Progressives know there's corruption. Progressives know those are bribes, right? So the rest of the Democratic voters, you're the most critical people on the planet right now, because you're going to decide who wins in a Democratic primary. Are you going to have someone who fights for you, someone who fights for the policies that you care about? What did I say earlier? If I run, my slogan is, I'm going to do things that are popular. Wow. Isn't that weird that no other politician will say that? Isn't that super weird? I'm going to do those very popular bills. Paid family, 84%. Public option, 69%. Higher minimum wage, around 70%. Why not do the things that are popular? Why not fight for you? But Democratic primary voters, please wake up. When Mitch McConnell takes $1 billion in corporate donations, you all know that's corruption. But when Nancy Pelosi takes $1 billion in corporate donations, you say, no, she's an angel. I don't want to break your heart, but she isn't an angel. She's doing the same bidding of the donors that Mitch McConnell is. So for all of their foibles and all of their problems among the Republican voters, they actually did want to drain the swamp. They just picked the wrong guy.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. We did not get to all of our questions, obviously. We don't have infinite time here, but you've been so generous with your time. And, you know, obviously, if we could talk to you again, we'd love to talk to you again. You said tyt.com/justice is linked where you can buy the book. Do you want to say anything about that before we sign off?
Sure. Look, let me say two things, because the campaign hasn't started. Watch Young Turks next week. We'll see. You know, I'll tell you one way or another whether we're starting the campaign next week for sure. But also on tyt.com, we're doing Operation Hope, where we're trying to get something passed from the outside, because I'm not going quietly into that good night. So if the inside strategy doesn't work, we're going to go with the outside strategy. But we're going to try again and again and again. We're going to be relentless, and we're going to do it together. We're going to come up with ideas together, and we're going to execute those ideas together. So it's just a discussion board on the homepage of tyt.com. Come participate. Come be part of positive change in the world. And then for the book, thank you. The book is Justice is Coming, and the place to get it is tyt.com/justice.
And we'll put a link to that in the description, obviously. And I mean, I listened to your talk with Ro Khanna. I do ultimately respect your willingness to go out there and try to make real change in the world. So many people are so cynical these days. And even if I disagree with you on a lot of things, like your moxie to try to do something, I completely respect. So
thank you, guys. And look, here, we had a 2.5-hour conversation at least. There was wild agreement, wild disagreement. There was, there was good feelings. There was screaming. But at the end of the day, does anybody think that I'm not authentic? Like,
no, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, I am giving you what I got. You might not like what I got. You might like it. You might be ambivalent to it, right? But don't we deserve one honest politician? Just one? So
that would be nice.
And that's the question I got to ask myself.
Be a change of pace, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah.
It would be a change of pace. So, all right, I'll let you guys know next week whether I'm going in or not, and
Nice.
And whether I go in or not. For God's sake, Joe Biden, drop out. Let's get a real candidate. We have to beat Trump.
Well, we'll go ahead and sign off. Sitch, I think we're gonna probably you want to just end the live stream, and we'll come back and read super chats in another live stream. We'll make this just okay. So we'll go ahead and end the video here. Thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks for your generous super chats. Thanks, Cenk, for coming on, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Okay, can you give us a bye-bye, Cenk?
Bye-bye.
Perfect.